The new student barely spoke a word since he transferred. He kept his head down, always sitting in silence. He went unnoticed by most, but not by the girls. One afternoon, while he was napping, the girls were admiring his looks, and one of them even took a sneaky photo. Later, she showed it to him with a shy smile. But right then, her boyfriend walked in. Seeing them together, he started mocking the new guy for being so quiet and skinny. The girl brushed it off, telling Taksu to just go sit down since class was about to start. Later that day, Taksu saw his girlfriend fanning the new guy again. She didn't even look at him. She just sat close to Jijeon. Because of this, Taksu couldn't focus on his game and smack. A ball hit him right in the face. At first, he laughed it off with a cold stare at the couple, but after the game, Taksu shaved the head of the kid who threw the ball, because no one is allowed to embarrass him in public like that. By coincidence, that was exactly where Jijeon hung out after snacks, so he saw everything. Realizing this, Taksu threatened to give Jijeon the same haircut, but the MC didn't say a word. He just looked at him calmly. Taksu tried, but he couldn't get a single reaction of fear out of him. So, he backed off, claiming he wouldn't do it just to avoid drama with the girls at school. That night, when Jijeon was on his way home, two students approached him and said the girl's boyfriend wanted to see him. When Jijeon arrived, the boyfriend showed him the girl's phone. Her wallpaper was the photo she had taken of Jijeon. She played it down, saying it meant nothing, and that Jijeon should just leave. The boyfriend, enraged, suddenly slapped her hard, knocking her to the ground. "Why are you on his side instead of mine?" he shouted. She stood her ground. "You call yourself my boyfriend, but you are always out partying with other girls." Furious, he kicked her in the stomach. Just as he raised his hand to strike her again, Jijeon intervened and blocked the blow. The boyfriend punched Jijeon with all his might, but it had no effect. When he attacked again, Jijeon quickly dodged and delivered a powerful punch that knocked him to the ground. Everyone around fell silent, stunned. The other bullies charged at Jijeon, but he took them down one by one. Then, he turned to the boyfriend and began striking him repeatedly, until the girl intervened and stopped him. It was at that moment she realized that the quiet boy wasn't just silent, he carried a hidden darkness inside him. Just as she was leaving school, she witnessed a disturbing scene. The boys were cornering Jijeon, dragging him by force to meet Taksu. She stood there for a moment, watching from a distance, trying to piece the situation together, but she couldn't just walk away. Making a quick decision, she decided to trail them. Gripping her umbrella tight, she sprinted to the corner and ducked into a hiding spot to watch. Peeking, she saw Jijeon delivering punches and kicks to all the boys. He seemed like an out-of-control animal, while the boys desperately screamed for him to stop. Ariam was paralyzed, witnessing that terrifying scene. As he left, the boy, visibly stunned by what had happened, passed by the spot where the girl was hiding under her umbrella. They stared at each other for a brief moment. She then offered him shelter under her umbrella. However, Jijeon just turned his back on her and left, drenched in the rain. The next morning at school, the students noticed Taksu's absence early on. However, his absence was not uncommon. Jijeon's absence, however, attracted more attention. Yena's friend was sad, feeling that without Jijeon, everything seemed empty. While they were thinking about the boy a little distance away, the boy who witnessed Jijeon beating up the bullies was recounting the events to a man. The man, surprised to discover that Taksu had been beaten and was now hospitalized, questioned the boy about his friend's condition. The boy replied that Taksu would need to be hospitalized for a while due to facial fractures, and that he didn't want visitors because he found the situation embarrassing. He also mentioned that 4 people were injured. The man then asked who would be the individual capable of defeating Taksu in terms of physical strength. The boy revealed that it was a guy named Jijeon, a transfer student who didn't speak, which is why no one knew anything about him. The man seemed dismayed to learn that 4 people had lost to an unknown young man. One of the man's henchmen grabbed the boy by the neck, questioning if he was hiding to avoid getting scratched. He replied that he simply didn't approach because he considered 5 against 1 unfair, and that's why he didn't intervene. The henchman threw the boy against the wall, while what appeared to be the boss asked where Jijeon had been transferred from. The boy replied that no one knew because Jijeon never spoke, literally. The corpulent man slapped the boy, calling him useless. He then asked if this Jijeon possessed any striking characteristics, something they could identify immediately. Somewhat embarrassed, he replied that Jijeon was so handsome he won favors from girls, with a model-like style, and also seemed to be rich. As he expounded on the young man's charm, the corpulent man hit him again, asking if he was in love with the boy. Meanwhile, the boss was simply trying to understand the story of that silent and mysterious transfer student named Jijeon, a fighter with an attractive appearance. That was a rare commodity. The man became absorbed, reflecting on how attractive Jijeon was. The next day, back at school in his normal routine, Jijeon headed to the lockers to put away his belongings. The boy was there, spying on him. He had received orders to investigate what kind of person Jijeon was. Facing the boss's furious look, he had simply agreed that he should investigate the guy. However, when it came time to fulfill the task, he regretted being in that situation. Jijeon opened his locker, which was practically empty. The phone lying inside began to vibrate, receiving messages. He picked up the phone to check the texts, which congratulated him and informed him that he had received that phone for free. It was an old phone, but talk worked, and the person on the other side would listen to any concerns Jizun might have. The protagonist looked around, searching for someone watching him. However, he did not spot either of the two who were hiding. Some girl had given the phone to Jizun and seemed nervous about the situation. However, he appeared to ignore the gesture, simply leaving the device on the locker and walked away calmly. The boy watching him seized the opportunity to take the phone Jizun had left behind. Upon grabbing the phone, he started checking the type of device and if it was unlocked. He received a shove on his back that made him fall to the ground. The girl who had pushed him took the phone and ran away. The boy remained on the floor, wondering what had happened and who that girl was. He got irritated with such rudeness, questioning why bullies were so fierce lately. Yuri was telling Yana about her aunt's poodle that had given birth to puppies and that she planned to adopt one, but her father would not allow it. However, she noticed that Yana was not paying attention as she was absorbed in thoughts again. She questioned if she was worried about Jizan, as it was the second day he had missed class. Looking ahead, she spotted Jizan. There he was, with good posture and a look devoid of life. When Yana saw him approaching, she froze. She handed her belongings to her friend quickly and ran towards the boy, giving him a tight embrace, surprising everyone with the occurrence. With tears in her eyes, she expressed her concern and asked if he was okay. She stated she would never forget that he had saved her life. The boy observing him confirmed his theory. Girls loved Jizan. He noted facts about Jizan on his phone, recording that he arrived a little late, that girls liked him, but that he also still did not speak. At the end of the day, leaving school, the protagonist followed the same path as always. Some men were waiting for him on that route. Upon spotting the boy, one of them noticed that he really stood out from the others. He alerted his companion with a whistle. They followed the boy on their scooters. They surrounded him, trying to intimidate him and prevent him from leaving. They asked if he was Jizan, and as expected, the boy did not answer. His lack of response, however, confirmed he was the one they were looking for. Then, the man ordered him to get on the bike, claiming he had come to pick him up. He asked Jizan if he had ever heard of Kang Do-il from Daeseo Technical High School. He explained that upon entering the second year, Kang Do-il had become a legend, reaching the school's top 3, and that there was no one who did not know him. After all, Daeseo was in a different dimension from Jizan's school, which was a mere meeting point for nerds. He added that Kang wished to meet him, guaranteeing that he did not need to fear, because, for now, it was just an invitation, and he would not die. However, Jizan remained motionless, irritating them to the point where they started shouting, ordering him to get on the bike. One of the henchmen grabbed the boy's backpack and asked menacingly if he preferred to get on the bike after being unable to walk, or if he would get on while they were still being nice. Jizan, however, simply dropped the backpack and continued on his way. That enraged the attackers, who quickly set off in pursuit of Jizan. The boy ducked into the first narrow alley he found. One of the men, trying to follow him, missed the turn and hit the wall. The other, however, continued the chase. Not even a gigantic staircase stopped the pursuer, who quickly rode up it with the motorcycle. When he was about to catch Jizan halfway up the staircase, the boy, with a simple kick to one of the trash bags, lifted it and threw it at the motorcycle rider. This sent him tumbling down the stairs, motorcycle and all, landing on top of the other henchman, who had just arrived after his wall accident. Witnessing the motorcycle fall down the stairs, one of the henchmen asked the other, perplexed, "What did you do?" Both got up and ran, trying to catch the boy who was already getting away. They saw him turn another narrow corner and quickened their pace to reach him. However, upon reaching the spot where Jizan had turned, they found themselves facing another gigantic staircase. Halfway up it, they spotted a fleeing boy. When they finally managed to catch him and turn him around, they realized it wasn't the same person they were chasing. This enraged them even more. Aggressively, they unleashed their anger on the unknown boy, simply for being there at the wrong time. As they cursed and assaulted the young boy, Jizan watched them from the rooftops and left without being noticed again. Back at the thug's base, the men reported that they had failed to capture Jizan. The short-tempered fat man cursed them for their incompetence and kicked them. Both claimed that the boy had fled through an alley that looked more like a labyrinth, making his capture impossible. The boss, Kang Do-il, said his anxiety grew with each passing moment. He asked Seung-min if he had discovered anything about Jizan. Seung-min, handing over his phone, stated he had investigated as much as he could. Kang Do-il read the only 3 pieces of information Seung-min had noted down and, enraged, asked, "Is this what you call an investigation?" The fat man then forced Seung-min to lie down with the other 3. The boss ordered them to let Seung-min go, but that the next day he should bring Jizan to the back gate after school. He asked Seung-min, "Can you complete the task?" and ordered Daishik to take responsibility for the boy's capture. He concluded, saying he needed to meet Jizan by the next day. The fat man complied with the orders, while Seung-min became increasingly shocked, realizing he was getting more and more entangled in the situation. The next day, early in the morning, Sung-min was buying 2 sodas when a friend approached asking, "Is one of them for me?" Sung-min denied it, saying, "No, there's no reason for that." And his friend asked, "Who is the drink for then?" Seeing Ji-sun pass by, Sung-min understood that this was his opportunity. He went after him, approaching from behind to greet him. He asked, "Are you okay?" and offered him a soda. He explained, "I want to clarify things because it might have seemed like I was part of Taksu's gang, but I only hung out with them a few times." He continued, "And on the day of the fight, I felt very invigorated seeing Taksu getting beaten without being able to react. That took a huge weight off my shoulders, and that's why I'm here to thank you." Ji-sun, however, paid him no attention at all and simply went on his way. This was already expected from someone like Ji-sun, and now Sung-min wondered how he would manage to take him to the back gate. Nevertheless, his fear of the fat man served as his motivation. The day passed, and lunchtime arrived. Everyone left the classroom to eat, but Ji-sun continued sleeping in the room for a while longer. As Ji-sun got up, Sung-min watched him, hidden by the door. He then realized why he had never seen Ji-sun in the cafeteria. He prepared his lunch separately. Ji-sun went to the same spot where he always ate lunch, and as he sat on the bench, found his phone again, with a message asking, "Is today's lunch bread again?" Then, Ji-sun noticed someone crouching to hide. The one trying to talk to him via phone was Arium. Taking advantage of him holding the device, the girl started sending him several messages. In them, she asked, "Do you always eat alone on the rooftop?" and revealed that I do too. She mentioned, "I've seen you a few times on the rooftop, and because of that, I felt like talking." As Ji-sun looked for who was sending him the messages, Arium sent another one, informing him, "I'm to your left." Upon looking, he saw her raise her hand to wave and then lower it again. Via message, she confessed, "It's still not easy for me to face people." She mentioned, "I heard you don't talk, and I share that characteristic." She then asked via message, "So, what's the reason for your silence?" Just as Ji-sun was about to type his reply, someone arrived shouting at his location. It was Sung-min, pretending their encounter there was a mere coincidence. He said he had gone there to eat his bread and asked, "What are you eating?" Even without receiving any reply, Seung-min sat down next to Ji-sun, announcing, "I'll eat with you." A discomforting atmosphere then settled, and the two ate in complete silence. Suddenly, Seung-min began to whimper softly, which drew Ji-sun's attention. Crying, Seung-min confessed that in fact, he had no friends. That was why he hung out with the Taksu guys, as he didn't want to be an outcast. He suggested to Ji-sun that since they were both outcasts, they should be friends. But Ji-sun didn't even pay attention to what he was saying. Seung-min's plan had no effect. Not even his tears helped. Our protagonist, Ji-sun, stood up to leave. However, Sung-min didn't want his effort to be in vain. He clung to Ji-sun's arm, asking, "Are we friends or not?" As expected, Ji-sun completely ignored him. He simply walked away, leaving Sung-min there, still waiting for an answer. A little later, almost at dismissal time, Daeshik sent a message to Sung-min, asking where he was and why he hadn't brought Ji-sun to him. The teacher was dismissing the class, and Sung-min, desperate, wondered how he would do it. He couldn't give up, so he went after his target. He couldn't find him anywhere and became increasingly desperate, imagining that Ji-sun had already left. Upon arriving at the 5th classroom, he didn't see him immediately, but he soon spotted Ji-sun sitting in front of the window, observing the activity outside. It seemed as if Ji-sun was posing for a commercial before leaving. More messages from Daeshik, asking how long he would take, motivated Sung-min to act quickly. Sung-min then called Ji-sun over to talk. He said he had called his mother, telling her he had made a friend, and that she had been very happy, and that she had asked him to bring his new friend to her workplace so she could meet him. He then asked, "Can you come with me, just to pretend to be my friend?" Sung-min thought that by using his mother as bait, Ji-sun wouldn't be able to refuse, and he waited for Ji-sun's answer. Since Ji-sun said nothing, Sung-min went up to him to lead him, guiding Ji-sun where he was supposed to go. He said, "To get to my mom's work, we'll have to go through the back gate. It'll be faster." Sung-min knew that in that neighborhood, if someone was naive, they wouldn't survive for long. He took the opportunity to inform Daeshik that they were going through the back gate. Discreetly, Daeshik passed by Ji-sun and bumped into him quite forcefully. Ji-sun lost his balance and was about to fall to the ground, but Daeshik held him by his backpack strap, saying, "You should be careful," he added. "If you give up easily, there's no reason the boss should have waited so long." He threw Ji-sun against the wall like a sack of trash. "It's a pleasure to meet the Silent One." He grabbed him by the neck and stated, "Your face might be handsome, but your skills, from what I see, are nothing special." Ji-sun placed his foot on Daeshik's chest and pushed him back, freeing himself from his hands. When Ji-sun landed on the ground, the cell phone he had won slipped from his pocket, rolling towards a nearby drain. Daeshik lunged at him again, questioning, "Is that all you've got?" A punch was thrown, and Ji-sun defended it with his arms. However, the impact made him slide backward, bringing him closer to a drain. Quickly, Ji-sun seized the opportunity to grab his cell phone, which was on the edge, preventing it from falling in. Full of hatred, Daeshik bellowed, "I'll annihilate you with the next blow." Ji-sun, the young man, promptly stood up, ready for the duel. Daeshik then taunted, questioning, "Can you, with your skinny body, withstand a fight with such a weight difference?" Meanwhile, the other boy, watching from afar, felt guilty for having brought Jizon to that place, fearing that the fatty, Daishik, would easily defeat him. Next, Daishik lunged at Jizon, challenging him to try and block the impending attack. However, the young man cleverly used his backpack as a shield. Still, the impact threw him backward, making him collide with the wall. Daishik showed surprise at the use of the backpack for defense, and admitted that Jizon was smarter than he looked. Jizon quickly emptied his backpack. Daishik then ran towards him, shouting that such a trick wouldn't work again. As he delivered the blow, Jizon masterfully dodged it. In a swift move, he used the backpack strap to loop around Daishik's leg, pulling with all his might to destabilize him. The chubby guy was thrown to the ground like a sack of potatoes. Daishik remained stunned, not understanding what had just happened. As he tried to get up, Jizon was already preparing his next attack, a precise kick to the opponent's face which hit him squarely. The chubby guy could barely comprehend where that skinny kid drew so much strength from. The hiding boy watched the scene, surprised and incredulous to see Daishik being overpowered. Daishik lay on the ground, his face visibly bruised. Jizon, in turn, turned his back with a look of contempt and picked up the phone that had fallen to the ground. However, Daishik abruptly got up and ran towards him, shouting that the fight wasn't over yet. He delivered a powerful punch to Jizon's chest, sending him to the ground. Then, he picked up the phone Jizon had dropped and asked in a provocative tone, "Is this device really that important to you?" Daishik declared, "I just need to take it anyway, and I regret that, for that, Jizon must be taken alive to the destination." Suddenly, an individual on a motorcycle appeared. Daishik got on the bike and informed Jizon that if he wanted his phone back, he would have to go to Alley Park. As he left, he added that a welcome awaited him. The scared little boy ran to Jizon to check if he was alright. He was impressed to find that Jizon had no injuries whatsoever. He asked what Jizon would do, now that his phone had been taken. He warned that if there was compromising information on the device, his personal data and private life would be exposed, and he would be in serious trouble. Jizon then replied, "My mother can wait for next time, and I need to hurry and go to Alley Park." The other boy felt he had played his part 120% up to that point, and now all that was left was to wait and see if Jizon would head to Alley Park. Jizon, our protagonist, silently got up and started walking. The observing boy was surprised to realize that Jizon was actually going after his phone. Jizon then arrived before a gigantic wooden staircase. He began to climb, passing by some suspicious-looking youths. As he approached the top of the staircase, he spotted several individuals. They all seemed to belong to a gang and were awaiting his arrival. They formed a human corridor, and at its end stood the group's leader. The leader, euphoric, showed satisfaction at seeing that Jizon had shown up. Displaying Jizon's phone, the leader asked, "Is this what you came for?" Jizon then simply walked towards the man to retrieve his phone. The leader commented, "I didn't find anything relevant on the device. No phone numbers, no call history. Only a few text messages were recorded from some girl who was watching him." Given the apparent simplicity of the phone's content, and surprised that Jizon had come so far just for it, the leader asked, intrigued, "What does this really mean?" Jizon stopped before him and extended his hand, asking for his phone back. The boss questioned, "Is it a girlfriend or perhaps something just starting?" Confessing that this story made him quite curious. Frustrated with the situation or the lack of answers, the leader sent a message, informing that he had moved some things quickly. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Ariam was receiving some messages. The message, sent from the cell phone number Jizon had given the girl, instructed her to go to Alley Park, promising that if she showed up, she would become his girlfriend. If she went there after reading that text, it would be a clear sign of her great affection for Jizon. The boss declared, "If Jizon and the girl become a couple, you should present me with a sweet treat later." Jizon did not utter a single word, keeping his hand extended, awaiting the return of his cell phone. The assailant asked, "Do you truly desire that?" and added that his henchman had found some difficulty in bringing him to that location. That infamous Taksu had always been excessively reckless, and the boss predicted that sooner or later he would end up in trouble. However, despite everything, they had been classmates in elementary school. Then he questioned, "Are you willing to face the consequences?" The boy, however, remained silent, which brought a smile to the boss's face, impressed by his unwavering and mute demeanor. The boss then promised, "If you can withstand my henchman, I will return your cell phone," he explained. As a transfer student, Jizon, you probably are unaware of the ferocity of the hierarchy disputes in this neighborhood. By confronting Taksu, he had, in fact, entered the power struggle. And finally, he declared, "I am waiting to see what you are capable of." Immediately, the burliest individual advanced against him, driven by a thirst for revenge. He threw a punch, but the boy, in turn, dodged with remarkable ease. This made the corpulent assailant even angrier, and he bellowed at the other henchman, "Attack the boy with punches!" Subsequently, all the assailants charged at the boy who, despite his skills in dodging attacks, did not retaliate. He merely intercepted the attacker's hands midway. However, the sheer number of assailants meant that some blows landed on the boy, who nevertheless managed to protect his face. He staggered and fell at the feet of one of the assailants. This one, in turn, delivered a precise blow to Jizon's face. Faced with his fall, others took the opportunity to land kicks on him. The boss merely observed the boy being brutally assaulted by everyone. He wondered why he only defended himself from the attacks without reacting. He pondered if the reason lay in the boy's lack of interest in the hierarchy dispute. One of the men next to the boss commented, "Even under such a beating, that infamous person has not let out a single cry," and asked, "Does he prefer to sacrifice his own life rather than utter any word?" This attitude further piqued the boss's curiosity, who wished to hear Jizan's voice, contrasting with his appearance. Then he bellowed, "Whoever makes the boy scream will receive a pair of limited edition Nike Air Jordan kicks as a prize." This promise further incited the gang of youths to intensify their aggressions against Jizan. Incessant blows were delivered, while Jizan persisted only in defense. The boss then roared, "Jizan, show your true capability and prove yourself to be a rare item." At that moment, Daishik appeared, ordering the others to step back. He kicked the boy and, in a challenging tone, asked where the momentum Jizan had displayed moments before had gone. The protagonist then fell to the ground, his face visibly disfigured. One of the aggressors, taking advantage of Jizan's fall, picked up a large rock. Addressing the boss, he declared he would make that wretch scream. He added that he had never liked Jizan's looks, and that this would settle the matter. However, the boss intervened, kicking the young man's hand to make him drop the stone. "Do you wish for death, debasing yourself to such an extent?" The boss grabbed Jizan by the shirt, lifting him to his own face level. "Why do you seem to enjoy the blows? What are you trying to hide?" He stated that the situation would not cease until Jizan proved his true worth. "This won't stop until you prove your true worth." The young man who had betrayed Jizan to the group hid, watching what they were doing to him. As expected, that gang proved to be on a higher level than Taksu's gang. As he pondered the situation, he spotted Arayam approaching the scene. At that moment, the cell phone in the gang boss's hands vibrated. Upon checking the received message, it read, "Let Jizan go." Immediately, the boss searched with his eyes, trying to identify the sender, and he spotted the girl standing holding her cell phone. He told Jizan that perhaps now he would gain the motivation to fight, as his potential girlfriend was present. "Maybe now you'll find the motivation to fight, since your potential girlfriend is here." With a simple nod, the boss ordered one of his henchmen to approach the girl, and, waving his phone, he shouted for her to come closer. "Get over here." As she was typing another message, the henchman approached her from the side. He grabbed her arm and was visibly impressed by her beauty. She tried to escape, but he restrained her more forcefully, asking where she thought she was going. "Where do you think you're going?" The young man, observing them, cowardly hidden behind a tree, was terrified to see his crush in that situation, but remained inert. The henchman dragged the girl closer to the group, stating that she needed to see the condition of her little boyfriend's face. Then he handed her over to the gang boss. Aryam and Jizan stared at each other for a few moments, remembering brief encounters they had had, and there was the girl, with a bruised arm and visibly frightened. Her presence at the scene impressed the henchman. The chubby guy questioned if she had come there because she wanted to be that scoundrel's girlfriend, but claimed the young man was a bit busy at the moment. "Did you come here because you want to be that scoundrel's girlfriend? He's a bit busy right now. Jizan is a frustrating guy and he's getting a lesson." The girl in turn typed a message, clarifying that the young man was just a friend and reiterating the request for them to release him. "He's just a friend. Let him go." The boss then questioned why she also wasn't speaking verbally, and then asked the girl's name. "Why aren't you speaking either? What's your name?" Getting no response, he noticed a commonality between the two: silence. Everyone began to mock the situation, scoffing at the fact that they communicated only through messages and calling them strange. "They only communicate by text. How strange!" The boss declared that it didn't matter who did it, but someone should make them speak and would be rewarded for it. It doesn't matter who does it, but someone needs to make them talk, and they'll be rewarded for it. The chubby guy then asked if the girl also qualified for the reward, and the boss confirmed. Immediately, the thugs surrounded the girl and began to harass her, claiming that since she didn't speak, she wouldn't refuse anything. Some held her by the arms, while others tugged at her hair. Jizan, for his part, merely observed the scene. The boss asked what he would do next, if he would continue to resist in that manner. Meanwhile, the thugs continued to harass the girl. One of the men, holding her face, asked why she kept her mouth shut, trying to force her to speak. Suddenly, one of the thugs surrounding the girl was hit. Jizan looked at the fallen man, and as he turned to understand what had happened, received a punch to the face. The man in the hat asked what he thought he was doing, but the next instant, he was hit by a punch to the face and fell motionless to the ground, already unconscious. That invigorated the boss, who realized Jizan was finally fighting for real. After pushing the aggressors away from the girl, Jizan attacked the others. The girl, for her part, remained terrified by the events. The entire gang then united to confront the young man. Some hit him with punches. He He grabbed one of them by the leg and threw him onto the others. Another man, however, jumped to grab him. Quickly, Jizun grabbed him by the hair and delivered several punches to his face. One of the gang members tried to kick the young man, but he dodged, grabbed the aggressor's leg, and knocked him to the ground. At that moment, the chubby man charged, running towards Jizun, yelling that he would end it. It was Daishik. Meanwhile, the man with the trapped leg screamed for Jizun to let him go. Jizun delivered a kick to the man's chin, knocking him out. Then he moved away and went to face Daishik. Dodging the punch Daishik tried to land, Jizun stepped on his leg, gaining momentum, and delivered a knee to Daishik's face. Jizun didn't stop there. He delivered another kick with the sole of his foot to his opponent's face. The boss felt increasingly motivated, realizing that the young man was a rare find. Meanwhile, the confrontation between Jizun and Daishik unfolded. Daishik grabbed him with all his might. Already missing a tooth, he was furious at getting beaten a second time. Jizun raised his arms high and delivered elbows to Daishik's face, hitting his eyes. He continued to strike his enemy's face with his elbows, causing Daishik to lose more teeth and fall unconscious. Everyone was in disbelief at the scene, as no one expected to see Daishik defeated. Jizun's fight against the entire gang continued. Amidst punches and kicks, all his opponents fell, one by one. Meanwhile, the gang leader merely watched, impressed by the young man's skills. He found him even more interesting than he had expected. One of the gang members then grabbed Arium by the neck, attempting to make Jizun stop attacking his companions. Seeing the scene, the protagonist remembered something from his past. A woman in a cap being held by a man and screaming, asking him for help. Jizun then seemed to grow even angrier and walked towards them, while the aggressor warned him not to approach. Another man even tried to attack him from behind, but with a single elbow he knocked the opponent down. He propelled himself, moving quickly towards the man holding Arium. The man screamed, consumed by fear of Jizun, but his scream was interrupted by a punch to the face. As he fell to the ground, Jizun didn't stop, continuing to attack him, delivering a succession of punches to the man. The gang leader then approached and ordered Jizun to stop, and he instructed him to take his cell phone back, as he deserved to reclaim his device. Then the boss invited Jizun to join his team, stating that he couldn't stand not getting something he wanted. The young man, enraged, moved away from the aggressor and walked towards the gang leader. The boss, visibly frightened, asked what Jizun was doing, since the fight had already ended. He reiterated the request for him to stop and questioned the meaning of that look. Jizun, ignoring the boss's words, moved to throw a punch. However, the boss put himself in a fighting stance, dodged the young man's punch, leaving him in disbelief. The boss delivered a punch to the young man's chin, throwing him backward. Jizun fell to the ground, nearly unconscious. The boss merely repeated that he had warned him to stop. The boy remained lying on the ground, motionless and silent. The gang leader asked him to think carefully about the proposal he had made, stating that he would return to hear his answer. Then he threw the cell phone at him. He summoned his crew to leave the spot, and everyone promptly followed him. "Who was that bastard?" the chubby guy questioned as they went down the stairs. He also asked, would the leader really recruit that mute bastard? And he concluded by commenting, it was scary to see his eyes roll back. The leader, in turn, thought about the punch he himself had dodged from Jizun. However, the boy had reacted in an instant, managing to graze him. That boy had a natural talent for exploiting openings, which indicated a high level of skill. This only intensified his desire to have him in his gang. Meanwhile, Jizun and Arium remained at the place where the fight had occurred. He sat on the bench, visibly exhausted after that intense battle. Arium was worried about Jizun's condition. Suddenly, she turned her back and ran off. At that moment, Jizun's cell phone vibrated, indicating the arrival of new messages. The girl's message informed him that she had gone to buy medicine and would return in a few moments. He remembered the delicate situation the girl had gotten into because of him. He reflected for a while on the situation, then left the cell phone on the bench and departed. A boy who was secretly observing was terrified of Jizun, as he believed that if the fight had been one-on-one from the start, he would have defeated all his opponents. Finally, someone remarkable had transferred to his school. As he passed the bench, he spotted a cell phone and recognized that it belonged to Jizun. Reading the messages, he understood that Arium had sent them to Jizun. He also realized that she harbored feelings for him. Then, he spotted the girl in the distance, returning with the medicine for Jizun. He reflected on what he should do in that situation. Acting like the coward he was, he decided to run away from there. When the girl arrived at the bench, she found neither Jizun nor any sign of him. The boy kept running until he was a considerable distance away. As he ran, the cell phone he had picked up vibrated with incoming messages. They were messages from Arium, saying she had bought the medicine, but that he had left before her return, and asking if his injuries were okay. Sung-min was surprised by Jizun's apparent coldness, as the girl was very worried, and Jizun hadn't even taken the phone. Sung-min remained undecided about what he should do. The girl kept sending messages, stating her name and the class she was in. She thanked him for helping her, and asked if they could talk gradually from then on. Seung-min was tormented by indecision. Should he reply to her, or just ignore the messages? He pondered whether he should pretend to be Jizun, even if only for a moment. Suddenly, a message arrived on the girl's cell phone. She was astonished to have received a reply. It was a simple, short yes to her question. The next day, Seung-min was showing the footage to his friend. The images showed Ji-sun fighting the entire gang alone. His friend asked, "Was that the guy you called unlucky?" Seung-min confirmed, expressing his surprise at having witnessed the scene live. The friend commented, "After that, Ji-sun will gain great popularity." Seung-min was irritated because his crush Aryam seemed to like that bastard, and on top of that, Ji-sun was rejecting the girl, which left Seung-min clueless about what to do. As Seung-min was lost in thought, his friend said, "If we post that on YouTube, the video will get millions of views, so I'm taking the video." The friend ran off and Seung-min followed, asking, "Give me back the phone!" As he ran, he bumped into a guy, knocking off the guy's tie clip, and quickly apologized. He had bumped into Kim Jin-woo, a second-year student and the second most prominent person at Baekdong High. Recognizing the guy, Seung-min quickly bent down to pick up the fallen clip and said, "I'll fix it again." Trembling, he put it back in its place. The guy slapped Seung-min's face, then turned his back and left. The burly guy accompanying Kim Jin-woo told Seung-min, "Behave yourself." Seung-min's friend asked if he was okay, and Seung-min, annoyed, replied that he had gotten beaten up because of him. His friend commented that getting away with just one slap was incredible, as that bastard was famous for his aggressiveness. They were all insane fighters, he concluded. His friend then drew his attention to something more important. Yena approached Ji-sun, asking what had happened, given the number of bandages on his face. The protagonist's growing popularity irritated Seung-min. Aryam and Yena were clearly enchanted by him. Speaking of Aryam, she was also walking by. Seung-min tried to approach the girl, trying to show sympathy, but she paid him no mind and just went on her way. As expected, to get close to her, he would have to get close to Ji-sun. While Seung-min was thinking about how he would approach the girl, his friend was hidden with his phone, posting the video of Ji-sun's fight against the gang on YouTube. The boys were teasing the boy whose hair had been shaved by Taksu. They drew a face on the back of his head and said he looked more handsome now. Gogumon was sad about all that mockery, but the teasing wasn't over yet. One of the boys said that from that moment on, he should only walk backward. Afraid of getting beaten up, the boy did as he was told. He walked without knowing where he was going, guided by the two boys. Suddenly, the ground under his feet ran out and he lost his balance, starting to fall down the stairs. As he was about to hit the ground on his back, Ji-sun held him, saving the boy from serious injury. Yena, who was with the protagonist, asked if Gogumon was okay. However, upon seeing the back of the boy's head, she couldn't hold back her laughter, even as he explained that he had been targeted by bullies. Trying to stifle her laughter, Yena apologized to Gogumon. As expected, Ji-sun found nothing funny about the prank, and Gogumon mentally thanked him. Later, in the school gym, while one student watched the door, two others were fighting inside. Surrounded by other students who cheered and motivated the two fighters in the center, it looked like a spectacle. Even bets were being placed on those fights. Kim Jin-woo found the fight boring, until a boy handed him his phone to show him a video. It was the video of Ji-sun fighting, posted earlier by Seung-min's friend. With each passing second, the views increased. Kim Jin-woo asked if that boy was from their school, and heard that he probably was, as the uniform was the same. They were both impressed by the boy's skills, but the video had been shot from too far away to see clearly. If he really was from that school, it would be a hit. So Kim Jin-woo asked everyone in the gym if anyone knew of any students recently transferred to their school. A boy replied that in the next class, there would be the quiet bastard, and said he was from class 5. There was also a rumor that Taksu had been hospitalized because of this student, but no one talked much about it, so it wasn't certain. Kim Jin-woo got all excited upon hearing that he had beaten Taksu, and asked one of his cronies to find out more about the guy, as he seemed like an interesting sort. At lunchtime, some boys called Gogumon to go with them, but he made a lame excuse. When Ji-sun left his classroom, Gogumon latched onto him and said he had bought some bread, asking if they could eat together. Since the protagonist didn't answer yes or no, Gogumon just accompanied him, saying they would eat together from time to time. When they arrived on the rooftop, Seung-min was already waiting there. However, Gogumon's presence next to Ji-sun left him confused about what was happening. While one said he was waiting to eat with Ji-sun, the other explained that he had come along for the same purpose. When Seung-min turned to speak with the protagonist, he saw the drawings on the back of Gogumon's head and started laughing, saying that he would always be the funny type. But Gogumon said he wasn't trying to be funny. He explained that his body was marked by the reality of school violence, something that couldn't be resolved by simply hiding it. You can't just avoid the truth, the boy concluded, and asked Seung-min to take a photo for him. Not understanding the photo's purpose, the boy took it anyway. While he was taking the photo, Ji-sun's phone, which was in Seung-min's pocket, vibrated. Moving away from the boys, he asked them to start eating, as he would be right back. He took the phone from his pocket and read Aryam's message, wishing Ji-sun a good lunch. However, he naively interpreted the message as being for himself and replied to the girl, wishing her a good lunch as well. This single message delighted the girl. Suddenly, Jae-min entered through the door, and Seung-min, scared, asked what he was doing there. Jae-min went straight to where Ji-sun was sitting. He said he had been told that the quiet boy usually stayed on the rooftop during lunchtime. He confirmed that it was true, moving even closer to the boy. He extended his phone, showing the fight video, and asked if that was him. Seungmin despaired when he learned that his friend had actually posted a video on YouTube. Gogumon asked what was happening. Jaemin replied that there were many rumors about it and that he wanted to see the boy's skills in person, but Jizon ignored him, which angered Jaemin. Already preparing to punch, Jaemin asked if he wasn't listening. When he tried to hit the boy with a punch, Jizon calmly dodged. Jaemin tried to throw more and more punches, but couldn't land any, and this only increased his anger. He then said that since the boy couldn't get up, he would be defeated that way. He tried to throw another punch, but the boy dodged again. In response, Jizon delivered a precise kick to his opponent's shin. This completely unbalanced him, making him lose his footing for a few moments. Then, Jaemin plummeted, hitting the bench with his face. The bully started screaming in pain after the impact. As Jaemin roared, Jizon stared at him with a look of pure contempt. Jaemin's face was covered in blood, as the impact against the bench had fractured his nose. As he stared at Jizon, Jaemin felt an overwhelming aura emanate from the boy. Overcome with fear, he fled immediately. The other two who witnessed the scene were impressed by the speed of his escape. Gogumon, perplexed, asked Jizon what he was, as he considered his nature unusual. Seungmin then revealed that it was Jizon who had hospitalized Taksu. This revelation only increased Gogumon's admiration for Jizon. However, Seungmin warned that the fact that Jaemin had come looking for him was dangerous. He explained that Jaemin belonged to Kim Jinwoo's gang, and that Kim Jinwoo, upon identifying skills in someone, would drag them into forced confrontations. Now, it seemed Jizon had become his target. Seungmin also mentioned hearing that some individuals volunteered to fight for money, and that someone like Jizon could easily earn a fortune. Gogumon, indignant, questioned what kind of nonsense he was spouting, and since Jizon didn't communicate verbally, stated that he would refuse the offer on his behalf. He inferred that Jizon didn't seem to have an appreciation for fights, or for imposing his strength. Gogumon then self-proclaimed himself Jizon's voice, claiming that, being friends now, he had the right to act in his stead. Seungmin, however, questioned the genuineness of that friendship, while Gogumon insisted on its veracity. Back in the classroom for the second part of the day, Jizon's arrival caused a stir. Some classmates, cell phones in hand, showed a video and asked if it was really him, requesting that, if it was, he at least confirm with a nod. Gogumon intervened, asking them not to bother Jizon, and that if they had something to say, they should address him first. The intervention annoyed everyone, who, in response, surrounded Jizon. At that instant, the door was abruptly opened, and Kim Jin-woo entered the classroom. He stopped at the front of the room and asked who the transfer student was. Everyone hesitated to point at Jizon, but Gogumon, standing beside him, drew attention. Kim Jin-woo then addressed the two. However, Gogumon positioned himself in front of Jizon. When Kim Jin-woo approached, he asked Gogumon what he was doing. With a hint of apprehension, Gogumon replied that he was Jizon's friend and representative, and therefore, Kim Jin-woo should speak to him first. The burly henchman of Kim Jin-woo asked Gogumon who he thought he was, but Gogumon insisted that communication should be done through him. Slapping Gogumon's face, the henchman asked if he was an idiot. As he fell, Gogumon turned onto his back, revealing to the henchman a face drawn on the back of his neck. The henchman grabbed Gogumon by the collar of his shirt, lifted him, and commented that, "This bastard is really funny." Jizon suddenly stood up, as if propelled by an internal force. Kim Jin-woo asked, "Are you the bastard who broke Jaemin's nose?" Receiving no response, Kim Jin-woo handed him a business card and asked if Jizon had ever heard of his academy. He mentioned having sent Jaemin to invite him, but since he was unsuccessful, he decided to come personally. Noticing the boy's lack of enthusiasm, Kim Jin-woo tried another strategy, asking, "Do you like making money?" Then Gogumon stood up, interrupting their conversation. He stated that Jizon had no interest in fighting and would not go to the arena. Kim Jin-woo, fed up with the idiot's interruption, kicked Gogumon in the chest, sending him flying backward. Gogumon fell awkwardly onto the chairs, crashing into them. Kim Jin-woo advanced on him and questioned, "Don't you know when not to butt in?" He also asked, "Why are you acting like a fool by getting between us?" He yelled at him to stay still and shut up. He then began to stomp on Gogumon, who was lying on the ground. While Kim Jin-woo was stomping on Gogumon, Jizon touched his shoulder, making him turn around. The two stared at each other for a few seconds. Kim Jin-woo told him to get your hand off my shoulder because I hate it when something or someone touches my body. Jizon gripped his shirt more tightly, visibly surprising Kim Jin-woo. The burly henchman advanced towards Jizon, demanding that he get your filthy hands off Kim Jin-woo. Jizon easily dodged the henchman's punch and retaliated with a precise knee to the opponent's face, who spat blood and screamed in pain. Immediately after, the young man fell over tables and chairs, but refused to accept defeat easily. He grabbed a chair, preparing to throw it, and declared that, "Jizon, you're finished!" With extreme ease, Jizon jumped, dodging the object, landed on one of the tables, and went on the counterattack. He ran closer and delivered a kick to his opponent's face, knocking him to the ground as if he were nothing. The boy remained standing on the table, emanating an intense aura, which made all his classmates confirm that the previous video was real. Furious, the bulky student stood up, lifting a table and howling with rage, vowing to kill Jizon. At that moment, the teacher entered the room, and upon seeing the scene, demanded explanations, reprimanding them for the fight, and questioning why Jizon was on top of the desk. Kim Jin-woo intervened, claiming it was just a prank to cover up the situation. He turned to Gogumin, calling him agent, and warned that he would contact him to speak with Jizon. He walked towards the exit, touching the teacher's shoulder as he passed and telling him to start the class. Later, after classes ended, Gogumin recounted to Seungmin what had happened, describing the situation as a movie scene where they couldn't even touch Jizon. Seungmin regretted not having witnessed the event live and asked why Jizon had not left yet. Gogumin explained that the teacher had asked him to stay, even though he hadn't started the fight. The conflict occurred within the school, which could cause problems. While the two speculated about their classmates' fate, the teacher offered Jizon green tea in the staff room. Although the taste was not popular among young people, it served as a pretext for the conversation. The teacher commented that the atmosphere of that institution was very different from Jizon's previous school. He revealed that when the boy's father announced the transfer to that place, he was against it, fearing that adaptation would be difficult, especially knowing that Jizon didn't speak. However, he felt grateful for the trust placed in him. The teacher continued, recalling that the last time he had seen Jizon was about 4 years ago, when he was still in elementary school. He vividly remembered seeing the boy training with incredible and energetic movements. At that time, Jizon's father introduced him as a friend, and the boy greeted him very politely. The teacher found it impressive that the father had transformed part of the house into an academy for his son. He recalled that after training, they went for a drink to celebrate their reunion, and that Jizon was a brilliant young man. The teacher admitted not knowing what had happened in that interim for Jizon to end up in such a wretched place, but warned that although he had asked for the understanding of the other teachers, Jizon would have to deal with the students on his own. He concluded by saying that the reason why his father raised him so strong was not just to train his body, and that someday he would overcome that silence. A sudden rain caught everyone returning home by surprise. Seungmin told his classmate that his concern now was with Kim Jin-woo, as they had no way to attract Jizon. At that moment, the cell phone he had taken from Jizon received a message. It was Aryam, asking if he had an umbrella. Confused, he questioned the reason for the question, and she replied that she was waiting in front of the stationery store. Seungmin went to the location, already imagining that she would have an umbrella, and confirmed his suspicions upon seeing her waiting for Jizon. Consumed by doubt and jealousy, he hesitated about bringing Jizon to her, not wanting the two to share an umbrella so closely. He then had an idea he deemed brilliant, and rushed to get the boy and put his plan into action. Aryam waited a little longer until she heard Seungmin approaching with Jizon. Feigning surprise, Seungmin remarked to his friend that he also didn't have an umbrella. Upon seeing Aryam, he pretended not to know why she was there. The girl searched her backpack, pulled out a spare umbrella, and offered it to Jizon. Seungmin's plan seemed to be failing, but he didn't give up. Even noticing that her eyes and heart were set on Jizon, he intercepted the gesture. He took the umbrella, thanking her gently, and fabricated that he and Jizon had somewhere to go, a new gaming center on Main Street. Seizing the opportunity, he invited her to come along. Meanwhile, Gogumin ran home, trying to escape the rain. As he passed through an alley, he was intercepted by two guys, Jae-min, whose nose had been broken by Jizon, and the burly student who got beaten in the classroom. Frightened, Gogumin asked what they wanted. Jae-min replied that since he called himself the boy's agent, they had a message to send to Jizon. Two assailants beat the boy, aiming to send a message to Jizon. Jae-min stated that they would meet again and demanded that the young boy repeat his words. With difficulty, the boy replied that the message was for Jizon to participate. One of the men assaulted him again, ordering him to respond properly. Already in tears, the boy assured them he would talk to Jizon. The aggressor then asked if he knew what quick access penalty meant, threatening him with death. At that moment, Kim Jin-woo appeared, interceding for the boy and asking the aggressor to go easy. Jin-woo took one of the business cards and handed it to the boy. He instructed the young boy to tell Jizon that he would be very welcome to enter the combat kennel. Then, the three left, leaving the boy injured and abandoned. Meanwhile, Seungmin was at the newly opened gaming club, playing with our protagonist. While Seungmin played with enthusiasm, the protagonist seemed indifferent. With skills he deemed unparalleled, Seungmin tried his utmost to impress Aryam. However, while he considered himself the best player, Jizon scored a point against him. The boy tried to hide his surprise, acting as if everything was under control, and returned to the game with a renewed thirst for victory. The protagonist, in turn, played with impressive ease, scoring another point effortlessly. Surprised by his friend's skills, Seungmin, with renewed confidence, declared that he wouldn't go easy from that moment on. Nevertheless, the match ended with an overwhelming score of 13-0. Jizon didn't allow his opponent to score even a single point. Seungmin invited invited Aryam to play a match, hoping she would experience Jison's indifference and, consequently, become thoroughly disgusted with him. The two started the match, characterized by subtle touches and a not-too-fast pace, until Aryam scored her first point, which made Seung-min furious with his friend, questioning where the skillful player from before had gone. The girl, visibly committed, scored another point. Next, they headed to the claw machines, where Seung-min believed he would have better luck. However, after several unsuccessful attempts, he asked Aryam to wait a little longer, confident that he would soon get a bear. He tried once more and again failed, getting annoyed and concluding that the machine was a scam. Beside him, Jison, with utmost calm, got another bear. With two identical bears, though of distinct colors, in his arms, Jison handed one to each of his friends. Seung-min, somewhat embarrassed, thanked him, while wondering what Jison, after all, couldn't do. Annoyed by the sequence of events, Seung-min decided to play his final card. He took his two friends to a karaoke bar, confident in his vocal abilities. He sang as loud as he could, hoping to be noticed by Aryam, but what he delivered was a comedy show, not a singing performance. Aryam, meanwhile, remained clutching the plushie she had received from her crush. At the peak of his disastrous performance, Seung-min choked and ran off in search of water. With Seung-min gone, Jison and Aryam were left alone, immersed in complete silence. Aryam took her phone and sent a message to Jison, thanking him for the bear. Suddenly, her phone rang. Upon seeing it was her father calling, she instantly became nervous. She stood up and left hastily, but as she passed through the door, she bumped into a man, causing him to spill all his coffee. The man yelled at the girl, reprimanding her for her lack of attention, and became even more furious when she didn't apologize. Seung-min, upon returning and witnessing the scene, tried to intervene. "Is she your girlfriend?" the man asked. "We're just classmates," the boy replied. The man then poured the remaining coffee over the girl's head, and as expected, the cowardly Seung-min did nothing. However, Jison approached and grabbed the man's arm, who, surprised, asked, "What the hell are you doing?" Our protagonist tripped the man, knocking him to the ground like a sack of garbage. The aggressor's companion tried to attack Jison, but received a punch that knocked him down. Aryam saw the two men fall before her eyes. Jison grabbed her arm, pulled her up, and the two ran off to avoid further trouble. Seung-min stayed behind, and the man asked if he was a friend of the two who had left. Quickly, the boy ran away to avoid any involvement. He grabbed his backpack and his teddy bear, and then left. Upon reaching the street, he spotted the two hurrying down the stairs. He shouted to try and get their attention, but got no response. They simply went on their way. Watching them from afar, Seung-min felt fascinated by the harmony they displayed together. Jison had rescued Aryam in a moment of danger, while Seung-min saw himself only as a cowardly loser. To the girl, he was nothing more than an ordinary NPC. Head down, he was walking home, disappointed with himself, when someone called his name. It was Goguman, sprawled in a corner, visibly injured. The boy approached and asked what had happened. With tears in his eyes, Goguman lamented not being qualified or capable of becoming a spokesperson for Jison. Seung-min asked if he had been beaten by Jinwoo's gang. Goguman confirmed, revealing that his fear had prevented him from fulfilling the promise to make Jison participate in the dogfight. Seung-min realized that Goguman was no different from him. Both lived the lives of cowardly losers. He helped the boy up and walked him towards his house. "What should we do now?" Goguman asked. Seung-min replied that if Jison considered them friends, he would help them. Meanwhile, the two, walking hand in hand, reached a certain point, and Jison let go of Aryam's arm. They then walked side by side. She took an umbrella and covered them so they wouldn't get wet from the falling rain. Yena, who was nearby, saw the two walking very close together. Noticing their closeness, she was speechless. "Has something happened?" her friend asked. She feigned nonchalance. "It's nothing." Her friend then hurried them along, as the others were waiting. Yena went on her way, still with the image of the two walking together in her mind. At that moment, Aryam's phone vibrated with more notifications, but she ignored them, continuing on her way. Upon reaching her apartment building, she stopped and took out her phone. She texted Jison that this was her residence, handed him the umbrella, and said goodbye. She ran off, skipping and euphoric, for having experienced that moment with her crush. As Jison turned to leave, he felt someone touch his shoulder. Turning around, he saw her phone displaying the message, "Thank you very much for today," and Aryam was smiling, holding the device. The girl ran back home, entered the elevator, and went up a few floors, watching Jison walk away. However, the sound of a lighter flicking open startled her. Looking to the side, she saw a man smoking a cigarette, staring at her. "What kind of nonsense is that?" he asked. Aryam remained silent, head bowed. The next day, back at high school, Seung-min reprimanded Goguman for betraying Jison. The boy deeply regretted what had happened. "I deserve death," he said. Seung-min continued to verbally assault and humiliate him, uttering words meant to move Jison. "When is Jison supposed to participate in the fight?" he asked the supposed spokesperson. Goguman informed him it would be on Saturday night at 9 p.m. at the gym. He added that if Jison didn't show up, he would be killed by the gang. The two tried to convey the seriousness of the situation to Jison and how much they needed his help, but the protagonist simply left. They were left wondering if he would go or not, and Goguman was desperate, convinced that all was lost. On Saturday night, at the fight club, nightclub, competitors fiercely faced each other, delivering powerful blows. With each impact, the audience cheered intensely. The two boys, Sung-min and Gogomin, were terrified by the scene unfolding inside a school and wondered if Jizon would actually show up. The crowd was euphoric with the intensity of the fights unfolding. An intense exchange of punches occurred between the two competitors, and with every opening offered by one of them, the crowd cheered, urging the other to seize the opportunity. Heeding the crowd's suggestions, the fighter landed his blows with precision. Through the cameras, a man watched everything from a private box. Finally, that match came to an end, and it was time for the main event. The man was curious to know if Jizon would appear, because although he considered him a quiet and gentle young man, he knew that, in reality, he was a fighter. He pondered on whom to bet, Lee Tae-sung or Jizon. Despite his curiosity about the transfer student's abilities, it was clear he should bet on Tae-sung, as that athlete was a true hunting dog. Suddenly, the phone rang. Upon answering, the man was informed that there was a student at the gate who wasn't answering questions. The teacher knew it was Jizon, and therefore simply instructed that he be let in. Peering through the window and spotting the young man arriving, he was convinced that his courage was commendable, the courage of a sacrificial lamb. The fight that was ongoing came to an end, with Min Chul as the winner. Kim Jin-woo wanted to know where Jizon was as the main fight was approaching. His henchmen intimidated other young people to find out if Jizon would attend, warning that, in his absence, the two would have to fight Tae-sung. At that moment, the gym door opened. All eyes turned to it, curious to see who had arrived. There he was, Jizon, the transfer student. Everyone was incredulous at his presence, and even his two friends were astonished by his arrival. They approached to greet the young man for coming to save them. Kim Jin-woo said Jizon had arrived punctually, like a ghost, and that he had been waiting for him for a long time. He stated that if Jizon won, those who bet on him would win the jackpot. However, only 10% of people had bet on his name. He added that he himself had also placed a bet on Jizon. In his eyes, Jizon was a hunt-hungry bastard. He asked the young man to show his full potential that day. The two main fighters stood face to face, staring at each other, trying to decipher something in one another. The young man, Tae-sung, took off his headphones, asking if Jizon was the transfer student. He threw the headphones to someone in the audience and asked them to play that song. He took off his shirt and declared that it was showtime. The two positioned themselves, ready for the clash. They began exchanging blows, and Jizon invariably dodged them all. He landed a punch in response, which his opponent defended. They continued to test each other's skills and limits. Amidst punches and kicks, only Tae-sung was receiving the blows. After a few quick exchanges, he soon realized, among all the opponents he had faced until then, Jizon's level was different. The situation was chilling that day, but he wouldn't let himself be intimidated. The moment he finished that thought, he received a punch to the face. Jizon took advantage of the brief opening when Tae-sung dropped his guard. The fighter didn't slow down, continuing to deliver multiple blows to his opponent, giving him no chance to retaliate. Jizon's two friends cheered with every blow he landed. Tae-sung was getting enraged because the young man's expression remained unchanged. He was becoming Jizon's punching bag. The teacher, watching through the cameras, wondered what was wrong with the boy he had bet on. The crowd started to get annoyed because Lee Tae-sung wasn't attacking. They asked to turn up the music volume to see if the boy would get more motivated. In unison, they started shouting the young man's name. The music and the crowd's shouts began to motivate him. Meanwhile, Jizon found that voice peculiarly familiar. This distraction caused him to receive his first blows. The audience, in turn, invigorated themselves and wondered what the song was. One young man replied to another that it was Ila Khan, a very popular girl group at the time. Jizon then recalled a girl who had told him that when her group debuted, he would become a pop star's boyfriend. In the past, the girl questioned him about his feelings regarding that situation. She assured him that the producers would guarantee her debut, provided she maintained the contract, and she was eager to know if she could meet that condition. Meanwhile, his friends invited him out. He reassured her, saying that, regardless of your choice, for me, it will be the right answer. The girl, immensely pleased with his words, thanked him, stating that, "You are the only person I can trust, my true sanctuary." Suddenly, the audience's shouts brought him back to the reality of the fight. Due to his inattention, he began to receive a flurry of blows. His friends, apprehensive, wondered about the reason for his sudden lethargy. Tae-sung, in turn, began to underestimate Jizon, thinking that the opponent had only been excessively cautious until then. With that, Tae-sung felt completely confident in victory, while the audience, euphoric, incessantly chanted his name. However, the music echoing from the radio caused Jizon to lose control of the fight. He was incessantly pushed back, and his friends didn't know how to intervene. Quickly, they realized that the loud music could be the cause of the distraction and headed to the source to ask them to turn down the volume. The boy, however, replied rudely, "Mind your own business." Sung-min then argued that Jizon can't concentrate because of the music. In response, they mocked him, stating that the quiet one didn't have enough strength to win. At that moment, Gogomin grabbed the speaker and ran off. Although they tried to stop him, he managed to turn off the music. In the protagonist's mind, scenes from the past paraded. The girl broke up with him, declaring that, "I I no longer wish to be involved. She announced that, from this moment on, we will no longer see each other, claiming to be fed up with the situation. She turned her back and left, leaving him calling out to her. He called out to her desperately until he was restrained and removed from the premises by security guards. While Jizun was lost in his memories, Taesung continued to land blows. Victory seemed imminent. He only needed a few more strikes to finish the fight, and so he did, hitting Jizun with additional blows. Jizun fell to his knees on the ground, still with the image of the girl in his mind. Just as Taesung prepared for the final blow, aiming to end the match, all spectators believed the fight had come to an end. However, upon sensing the imminent kick, Jizun dodged with surprising agility. His mind seemed to have reconfigured, and he fully re-energized his body, furiously charging at his opponent. He landed a devastating punch to Taesung's face, which sent him forcefully to the ground. The crowd was shocked by such force. Jizun didn't stop. He kicked his opponent's face again. The rival spat blood, desperate, not understanding what was happening. Kim Jin-woo had already realized the outcome of the fight was sealed. Jizun's fans cheered, while the rest of the audience fell silent. Taesung was completely disoriented, as he had dominated the match seconds earlier, but now he was being kicked as if he meant nothing. Jizun displayed a terrifying gaze and aura. Lying on the ground, his opponent pleaded for him to stop. However, the protagonist ignored the pleas and kicked his opponent's face once more, continuing to deliver repeated kicks. Then, everyone began to question what he was doing, fearing he might kill his opponent if he continued that way. Jizun, however, seemed possessed by a blind rage. Those present inquired Kim Jin-woo if Jizun wouldn't end up killing his opponent, should he continue with that intensity. However, instead of showing concern, he seemed pleased with the young man's bloodlust. He rejoiced, imagining that Jizun would be a box office success, and wondered who the next opponent should be to create an even more thrilling match. His friends then intervened in the fight, restraining him and stating that he had already won. Taesung's professor was furious witnessing his favorite's defeat. However, for Kim Jin-woo, what truly mattered was who brought him profits, and he believed Jizun could be his ally in that regard. Kim Jin-woo just needed to turn him into a loyal hound. He would be the only one to train the young man. Jizun came back to his senses, but his opponent was already nearly unconscious on the ground. Kim Jin-woo congratulated him on the victory, stating that his judgment was not wrong. He told the boy to show the same insane look in the next match as well. The fight money would be delivered through his agent. Afterwards, Kim Jin-woo left, and the two boys followed him. The two, trying to be friendly, invited him to celebrate the victory. Jizun, however, merely slapped Gogumun's hand as a warning not to touch him. He then left, leaving the boys confused. A little further on, as he passed in front of a store, he heard a familiar sound and, looking up, saw Isla Khan's show on a screen. The interviewer asked if she was aware of the extent of her current popularity. She replied that she felt her fans' appreciation for her efforts, even in her moments of weakness, and thanked them. Seungmin and Gogumun, who were still following the boy, became curious as to why he had stopped to watch the report on Isla Khan. They then remembered that Jizun had been acting strangely ever since he heard her music. They concluded that he was a hater of hers, and couldn't imagine the singer having detractors. Seungmin was astonished to discover that Gogumun was a fan of the singer. He scorned him, saying he had expected such a thing from him. However, he himself revealed that he was also a fan of the band. Sometime later, Jizun arrived at the beach. The two boys continued to follow him there. The protagonist sat on a bench and gazed at the sea. Seungmin asked Gogumun if they shouldn't go talk to Jizun, but Gogumun said it wasn't a good idea. Seungmin insisted, arguing that if they were friends, they should do something. Gogumun said he had someone in mind who could comfort him, and he became thoughtful, pondering whether or not he should do it. While Ariam was already asleep, her cell phone started ringing. She woke up and saw Jizun's message, inviting her to go to the beach in front of the lighthouse. The girl got dressed and tried to leave discreetly. She passed by her father, slumped over the table, asleep after drinking too much. Suddenly, he started cursing the air, and the girl got scared, but it was just a dream, and soon after, he fell asleep again. She managed to leave the house to meet her crush. On the beach, Gogumun asked who Seungmin had contacted, and the latter replied that it was a girl. Gogumun was surprised to learn that Seungmin was sending messages to girls. Seungmin explained that, in fact, Ariam didn't know it was him sending the messages, and that was the phone she had given to Jizun, as she wished to communicate with him through that device. However, when he took the cell phone, he replied to some messages pretending to be Jizun, and deep down, he knew he should return the device, but he couldn't. Gogumun put his hand on Seungmin's shoulder and asked if he liked her. Seungmin replied that he used to like her, but that now he knew his proper place. Gogumun then gave him a push and told him to return the cell phone quickly. Seungmin walked to Jizun, who was still sitting on the bench, and handed him the phone. He apologized and confessed that he had pretended to be him for a while. He also said that he had sent one last message and asked Jizun not to reject Ariam. As he walked away, he said that the two made a beautiful couple. Upon checking the phone, Jizun saw a message from the girl informing him that she was almost arriving. And, for the first time, he felt nervous about the situation. At that moment, Ariam arrived running to meet her beloved. As soon as she arrived, Gogumun, who was hidden, admired the girl's beauty. While Gogumun said that the two were a good match, Seungmin lamented having lost the girl of his dreams. Gogemon said it was already late and they should leave. He invited Seungmin to sleep at his house and play video games. The two left to leave the lovebirds alone. The silence predominated in the place, broken only by the sound of the sea. Aryam typed a message saying she was surprised to receive it, and she waited for a response from the boy. Jizon replied that he was thinking of her. She tried to start a conversation about the sound of the waves, but he only replied with an emoji. The girl asked if he went there often, and he said it was the first time. Jizon asked what time she usually slept. And Aryam replied that at 10 o'clock and that, in fact, she was already sleeping when she saw the message. He stood up and said he would accompany her home, but the girl held his arm and said she didn't want to go home. He neither retorted nor disagreed. He simply acceded to her request. He went to the soda machine to get something for both of them to drink. She thanked him for his kindness, and he then inquired about her reluctance to leave. The girl revealed that her home felt like a prison. She added that she had been surprised to receive his message that day, recalling that the last time he had only sent a good night. That previous message had also caught her off guard, as he had suddenly sent it. Jizon checked his phone, confirming the goodnight message from the day before. However, it was Seungmin who had sent it, a fact Jizon chose not to mention. The girl continued, explaining that she was going through a very difficult time that day, but that message sounded like a small word of encouragement, urging her to hang in there. She felt very grateful at that moment. Then, she decided to ask the boy a question, wondering why he wasn't speaking. He began to ponder the reasons, immersed in his memories. His ex-girlfriend seemed to have abandoned him. As security guards prevented him from passing and threatened him with arrest, the girl ran back and hugged him with all her might. She confessed to having practiced the breakup so many times to remain as cold as possible, but seeing him now, she couldn't do it. She wouldn't abandon him, even if it cost her own life, and asked Jizon what she should do. He assured her that no matter what happened, he would always be by her side, asking her not to cry because everything would be alright. Atop the building, Go Bong-san, the CEO of Bong-san Entertainment, watched the two. Returning to reality, he replied to Aryam, explaining that a person's words could penetrate the soul and paralyze everything. She, somewhat reflective, found that very philosophical. She commented that she didn't know what was going on with him, but supposed his reason was more complex than hers. The boy asked what the reason for her reluctance to speak was. Calmly, she replied that it was simple. Her words were as dirty as her father's. She realized that her father's way of speaking was part of her, and acknowledged that it was a stupid reason. Jizon invited her to walk along the beach. As was to be expected on a Saturday night, the area was quite busy. As they passed a bar, an argument started inside. A group of individuals began to provoke a younger guy, criticizing him for drinking there. Confidently, the boy replied that he could drink, as he looked older for his age. The young man's arrogance irritated everyone. It was Kang Do-il, the gang leader who wanted to recruit Jizon, and he was there, expressing his desire to just drink in peace. One of the provocateurs asked about Do-il's lackeys and why he was alone. The boy retorted that he preferred to let the kids rest during the holidays, and that it was easier for him that way. The individual told him to leave, warning that if he didn't, he would face the consequences. Tauntingly, Do-il asked if the seniors from Daiseo High had bullied him to harbor so much hatred. They called him petty for being stuck in his ideas. One of them knocked everything off the table, showing a strong desire to assault him. Kang Do-il, standing up and kicking the table onto the floor, declared that first of all, he had never been afraid of getting beaten up. Everyone inside and in the street realized that a fight was imminent. The 1-on-4 fistfight began. Kang Do-il seemed to be playing a fighting game with children, until, in the middle of his moves, his gaze met Jizon's blue hair. He smiled and exclaimed, "It's a pleasure to see you here. I'm so happy to see my friend." The guy commented that he was about to visit him, but fate had arranged that meeting right there. He hugged Jizon, who didn't understand anything, stating that it was the work of destiny. However, the brawlers who were fighting in the bar ran out and questioned if Jizon was part of the same gang as him. The guy retorted, asking if they couldn't perceive the connection just by looking, and affirmed that he and Jizon were friends. The thugs, however, didn't care one bit about this supposed friendship. Immediately, Jizon positioned Aryam behind him to protect her. The group attacked with hatred, yelling that they would kill those punks. While the gang leader dealt with one of the aggressors, another advanced towards Jizon, saying that if they were friends, both should get a beating. With impressive ease, the protagonist took down the bully. The two began to fight together against the group, warning each other when someone was about to be caught off guard, and took everyone down in a matter of seconds. Observing the scene, Aryam reflected that Jizon seemed to be at the top of a very high and unreachable wall. However, she noticed that at times the boy came down from that wall to help someone. He might seem cold, but in reality, he was not. While everyone fought for selfishness and their own desires, Jizon was beyond that. He fought for something desperate, far beyond his own will. Suddenly, one of the men pulled out a knife and advanced behind the boy. Without him noticing, the guy got close enough to strike. The girl screamed desperately to try to warn him, and his fighting partner also warned him to duck. Jizon reacted immediately, dodging the attack. Right after, the gang leader appeared with a flying kick to the opponent's face, cursing him for having the audacity to pull a weapon against only only 2 opponents. He stated that unskilled people acted like that when they were in trouble. Together, they took down everyone who tried to face them. The guy asked Jizun if he didn't think they made a beautiful duo, since they had finished everyone off perfectly. Jizun, however, looked at Aryam and saw her eyes full of tears. The guy asked if he was scared, saying that was nothing. In response, the protagonist punched him in the face. Confused, he asked what the hell was happening. Without saying a word, Jizun punched him in the stomach again, knocking him down. On the ground, the guy confessed that he set it all up just to see Jizun fight for real. When the protagonist threatened to end the matter right there, the boy raised his hands in surrender, saying he didn't want to fight him because they were on the same side now. He apologized for how it was done, explaining it was just a test, and that Jizun passed with flying colors. Then, he asked Jizun to become his friend and join his gang. The boy, however, just turned his back and walked away with Aryam. The other guy followed them, commenting that the two seemed quite intimate to be together at that time of night. He said he was satisfied because he felt he played some role in that event. He stated that since he owed Jizun one for the help, he would show them a place to rest instead of wandering aimlessly. The two were undecided but ended up accepting. The guy took them to a comic book library. He called the attendant, who was sleeping deeply without a sense of time, to serve his new customers. He commented that he had never seen those faces there, and Doyle replied that they were his new friends. The attendant noted that his type of friends had changed, since these were good-looking. He told them to sit wherever they wanted and offered extra time on the house. While Doyle was registering the two, the scene changed to Aryam's house. The girl's father woke up from his deep sleep. Upon getting up, he noticed the open door. He went to his daughter's room and saw she wasn't there. He started looking for her through the whole house, getting desperate upon not finding the girl anywhere. Doyle revealed that this was his secret hideout, a place he used to relax at any time. He would grant them 2 special permissions, as he didn't usually allow anyone to enter. He asked if such a gesture settled his debt with the boy. He urged them to relax and read a manhwa. He said goodbye, announcing he would take a nap, lay down in a corner, and fell asleep. In silence, Jizun picked up his phone and asked Aryam if she was scared. Aryam replied no, that she was calm now. She then asked if he wanted to read a manhwa. He accepted, and together they chose a work to start reading. After a few pages and some moments of shyness from the girl, they continued reading quietly for a good while, until the library attendant approached, offering them drinks on the house. He expressed surprise that Doyle had friends like them, mentioning that Doyle actually didn't have real friends, only young people involved in constant fights. Upon handing over the drinks, the two noticed that the attendant was missing part of 2 fingers on his hand. He noticed their surprise and said he was used to it, and that it didn't bother him anymore, although at first, it had been terrible. He added that Doyle still hadn't been able to accept the older man's injury, and explained that Doyle, once an ordinary child, had started to stray from the path after that incident. He apologized for talking so much on their first time there, and asked them to take care of Doyle, as he was a great junior. The hours passed, and the girl fell asleep, leaning on his shoulder. She slept deeply until her phone started ringing. Startled by the noise, she woke up, feeling embarrassed upon realizing she was leaning on Jizun. Checking the phone, she noticed 3 missed calls. She wrote to Jizun, explaining that it was her father calling and she needed to leave. Jizun offered to walk her home. The two went on their way to her house under the beautiful night. They arrived at the building where the girl lived and took the elevator to her apartment door. She thanked him for the hours of freedom she had by his side. Jizun was somewhat confused by her words as she headed to the apartment. As soon as she entered the password to open the door, her father opened it, furious. He shouted, questioning her about the time and how many times he had called her, saying she must have gone crazy to do something like that. Upon seeing her look, he became even more enraged. He struck her across the face and cursed her for staring at him like that, even though she was wrong. With the girl on the floor, he questioned if she did not respect her own father. Grabbing her to pull her inside the house, he asked how she dared to go out without telling her father and what she was doing until that hour. Each time he shouted louder, demanding she answer the questions. Witnessing that scene, Jizun became enraged and went towards them. Upon seeing Jizun, her father was sure that he had been responsible for taking his daughter out of the house during those hours, and promised that today he would not let the boy leave there. The girl then held her father by his clothes with both hands. Her father shouted, ordering her to let go immediately. With tears in her eyes, she looked at Jizun. "Go away!" she screamed. Delivering another blow to the girl's face, the man said he would kill that boy right now. The girl resisted the blows, holding on to her father, while begging Jizun to leave. She screamed for him to simply depart. Jizun then heeded her words and fled. The protagonist began to reflect that he had already learned to run in the past when moving to that city, and that he had also failed to face such a situation before. As Jizun fled, the girl's father continued to rage against her, demanding she let him go. Jizun, however, just took the opportunity and escaped. It was in his nature to run from something he could not face. He closed his eyes as if nothing had happened, struggling to hide in the silence and the dark. Already far from the girl's house, he walked, exhausted and deeply shaken. Finally, he arrived at his home. An old man was kneeling before the Buddha, saying his prayer. Jizan knelt at the doorstep, and the old man, seeing him, commented. "You arrived late," he said. He noted it was the first time Jizan was late like that, and that he must have a lot to think about. The neighborhood where Jizan had moved in search of refuge was the quietest place to live. However, even there, with the passage of time, he had made new friendships, and now he needed to make a choice before all that became more complex. The question was, would he accept it or run once again? Some days passed since that event. The fights continued at school. The fight club was a scene of pure brutality. The winners only stopped the blows when the opponent begged for mercy, and the bullies boasted about beating weaker students. Upon seeing the boys surrender, Jinwoo went furiously to question him about the reason. "You barely started fighting and you already surrender?" he asked. The boy replied then that he had almost no chance and saw no reason to continue fighting, knowing he would lose. Then Kim Jinwoo struck him in the face. "If you are in the ring, you shouldn't have that kind of mentality," he stated. "People like you don't deserve the title of fighter. Don't ever look at my face again." One of the henchmen said that Professor Kim was calling him in the warehouse. In the warehouse, the professor told him that they needed real fighters, not individuals so fragile, and that everyone was anxious for Jizan's next fight. Kim Jinwoo said he was trying to find fighters, but most lacked endurance, and the rest were afraid of getting hurt. The professor asked if he was implying he was unable to find people. With a trembling voice, he replied he didn't say that, just that it would take some time. When asked how long it would take, the boy asked the professor for a month. The older man then said that he turned the wretch who walked around with fake sneakers into someone capable of wearing luxury clothes, and that now he seemed very confident. But he added that clients do not wait a month. He also said there were other betting places for him to get his dose of dopamine, and that if he couldn't manage, he could step away from the hound dog operation. The boy got on his knees and said he didn't want that and promised to do his best. The professor placed his foot on the boy's head. "You have 1 week to find an opponent," he said. "Otherwise, you must take responsibility and fight yourself." Kim Jinwoo versus Jizan would be an interesting fight. This way, he could take the opportunity to show his fighter side again, and the clients would love it. The professor left and reminded him of the 1-week deadline. He was enraged by the idea of fighting Jizan. Now, he needed to find any opponent to fight. Meanwhile, the three were on the rooftop for lunch together. Goguman said he had gotten a donkatsu bento and that it was bad to eat bread daily. The two boys insisted that Jizan eat, as he was too thin. Eating lunch there had already become a routine for them, as the spot was comfortable. When Jizan's phone vibrated, Seungmin immediately asked if it was Arium. Apprehensively, he asked if the two were getting along and told Jizan to check his phone. The protagonist stood up and went to check the message away from them, while the other boy asked to see what it was. Goguman cuffed him on the head and told him to mind his own business. Arium had asked if he would like to meet her at the comic book store later. Hours passed, and the two went to the comic book store. They remained silent for a while, just in each other's presence. She mustered courage and said, "It would be strange if I didn't speak now, since I screamed that one time. I hate my own voice because I have a vulgar way of speaking, which I picked up from my father since I was young. I wish it were possible to hide my own voice, but I don't regret it, as I didn't want you to get hurt." Arium recounted that her mother endured her father's behavior until one day she couldn't take it anymore and left. From then on, it was just her and her father at home, which led her to speak less and less, until she stopped completely. Consequently, the few friends she had drifted away. Doyle then arrived at the comic book store. The clerk informed him that his friends were also there. Arium continued, confiding in Jizan that she had always felt lonely until she heard rumors about him, a new transfer student who didn't speak at all. That's why she wanted to know if his story was similar to hers. Doyle arrived and was astonished to see her speaking, asking, "What made you start communicating again?" Somewhat embarrassed, she explained that she was in a situation where she had no choice but silence. He then wanted to know, what was the situation? Smiling, he stated, "Regardless of the circumstance, I appreciate the possibility of communicating more freely." He congratulated her on speaking again. Silence hung again until Doyle asked about Jizan. However, he quickly dismissed it, suggesting, "Since we're all here, we could have dinner together." He invited the clerk to join them, reasoning that there were no customers. "You just need to lower the blinds and leave." As they left for dinner, Kim Jinwoo seethed with fury, obsessed with the possibility of fighting Jizan. The bulkier boy said, "Giving only 1 week for this is too cruel." Furious, Kim asked them, "Don't you know any bully for the fight?" "I don't know anyone, and it would be shameful to lose to the transfer student," the bulky friend said. "However, I have only one person in mind. It's a bully who dropped out of high school and became a gangster. Anyone who gets involved with him will be in serious trouble," he warned. "Wouldn't it be an exaggeration to involve a real gangster in this situation?" the other boy questioned. "Who are you talking about?" Kim Jinwoo asked. Somewhere in the city, a man was being accosted by a loan shark due to a 2-month debt. The act of hiding without prior notice was interpreted as an attempt to avoid them. The man, in tears, claimed to be trying to settle the debt. debt. Then, with scissors in hand, the loan shark questioned the veracity of the claim. Are you really trying to settle the debt? We found you in a casino and brought you here. Desperate, the man claimed. I was at the casino to try to get money, and with just one jackpot, I could pay off the entire debt. I dreamed of my ancestors, and I feel that something big is about to happen in my life, he stated. The loan shark held the debtor's hand and with scissors squeezed his finger. Terrified by the situation, the man begged for more time to pay off the loan. The loan shark retorted that, even while working, the debtor hadn't paid the debt and now intended to settle it through gambling. He asked if anyone there looked like an idiot to him. The henchman, holding the man's hand, said that it would sting a bit, but assured him he was a master in this area, promising a clean and precise cut. The man begged for forgiveness, but no one listened to him, and one of his fingers was cut off. Subsequently, the henchman stated that what was happening at that moment was very important. The man would have 1 hour to get the money. After that, the finger would be returned so it could be sewn back on. He ordered the man to run out of there, and in tears, he obeyed. The boss asked his henchman if he was happy to add another finger to his collection. The henchman replied that he didn't like that type of low-quality finger, but admitted it had been a long time since he felt such emotion. This was the man the burly friend had in mind for the fight, Jung Gitai Sunbai, the same one who had cut off the finger of a student from the same class who played guitar in the school band. His friend commented that this guy was already too crazy. He went on to say that after the incident, he served in a juvenile facility and became a gangster after his release. Kim Jin-woo, cheerful, asked if there was any way to meet the guy. Even the burly friend who had given the idea was amazed at the possibility of calling him. The other boy was excited about the prospect of a fight between the Sunbae, now a gangster, and the invincible transfer student. He stated that they were not in a position to be picky about whether he was a gangster or a killer. They simply needed to act. As they were planning this fight, the four friends went out to dinner somewhere. Hyung complained he didn't like going out, and Doyle retorted, "You can't rot in the Manhua shop every day." Doyle mentioned that at some point in the past, Hyung had been on a stage. The boy replied, "It's been a long time." Aryam intervened, "It was just a phase." Doyle then asked, "Are you in a band since you're such a great guitarist?" He then changed the subject, asking, "Would you prefer street food or Chinese food?" A car passed and spotted the four walking down the street. Inside were the loan shark and his henchmen. The loan shark asked to stop for a bit, as he had some friends he wanted to greet nearby. He got out of the car, warning that he would be right back. Then, he started yelling, calling out for Hyung. As he approached, he said, "Seeing you I wasn't sure, but now I confirm it's you." As the man spoke about the past, the boy, seeing him, became desperate, recoiling until he bumped into Doyle, who held him, trying to understand the situation. The gangster asked, "Have you seen a ghost to be so scared?" The man approached the two young men and commented, "You seem close, which is good to see." Suddenly, he asked, "Why are you paralyzed?" "I'm very happy to see you," he went on, reminding them of the long time since they'd last seen each other and asking, "Won't you greet me?" "Excuse me, Gitai Sunbei," one of the young men apologized, explaining they were on their way to eat something. In a dry tone, he added, "If this conversation continues, we'll lose our appetite." Gitai remained silent for a moment. With a smile, he took out his wallet and offered to pay for their meal, justifying, "It's been a while." He then placed the money in the young man's pocket, instructing them, "Eat some meat, students usually don't have money." Turning to Byung-gu, the other young man, Gitai commented, "Our destinies seem to cross frequently." Taking something from his pocket, Gitai stated, "I ran all the way here to give you this." He then revealed, "I got the item today, and in my opinion, you really needed it." In the background, the other two young men reacted to the scene. Pulling away, Byung-gu breaks free from him. Gitai, offering the object as a gift, instructs him to take it to the hospital and speak with the medical staff. He adds that they should ask for the finger to be reattached so he can play the guitar again. In an agitated tone, he orders the young man to state that this is his dream. The other friends watch the scene. The blue-haired young man looks away, turning his face to the side. The scene changes, revealing him with his back turned that same night. Someone calls him, uttering the name Jiban. Naturally, the man asks if he has gotten used to the neighborhood, noting that, apparently, he hasn't. He then advises him to be grateful for those who approach him, as making friends won't be easy. Continuing, he states that these people have crossed the great wall of his silence and assures that they will become precious individuals on his journey. That night, the young man's expression changes. Returning to the present, he grabs Gitai's wrist. Gitai spins his body, turning to face him. The young man, without looking away, stares back at him. Coldly, Gitai questions who the damn fool is who doesn't know how to read the room. Immediately, Jibon tries to grab Gitai, who, in turn, grabs the young man's wrist and questions his audacity in being so arrogant. Holding the young man's hand, Gitai comments that at least his fingers are beautiful, warning him impassively. He says that if he intervenes again, he might lose his own fingers. Releasing the young man's hand, he asks if he was understood. The young man backs away, taking a step back, while Gitai insults him with the expression, "son of a bitch." He questions if the young man is looking for trouble, calling him an arrogant bastard. In the background, a car horn sounds, making him look briefly at the street. Turning to Byung-gu, who has fallen to the ground, he asks what life without dreams is like. With a mocking laugh, Gitai faces the group and wishes them a good meal. Walking nonchalantly, he leaves down the street. On his knees, Byung-gu collapses to the ground. His friend runs to him, shouting, "Bye, Byung-gu Hyung!" Lying on the ground, Byung-gu asks if the others are okay. The group approaches, surrounding him. Getting up, he assures them that all of that is in the past. Stating that he is fine now, Byung-gu suggests they return, as they can eat out another time. The young man with the lip piercing calls him Byung-gu Hyung. On the rooftop, Kang Doyle laments his inaction for having simply frozen. In a desperate cry, he states that he couldn't do anything. In the end, nothing changed. Curious, the girl asks about the identity of that man. The young man answers straightforwardly, "It's Jung Gi-tae, the man who cut off Byung-gu Hyung's finger while he was playing guitar." Jibon adds that he did it to ruin his friend's dream. It all happened because Byung-gu was merely trying to stop the gang acts of that despicable individual. The scene shifts to the past, revealing a music room. At that moment, Gi-tae was threatening a girl with a knife, ordering her to shut up before he killed her. Grabbing him from behind, Byung-gu shouts for Jung Gi-tae to stop. Gi-tae struggles to break free, ignoring Byung-gu's pleas for him to stop. Then, Gi-tae attacks him with the knife. Byung-gu raises his hands to his face, trying to block the blow. Gi-tae spins his body and, turning, questions why on earth he had interfered. Shouting incessantly, he asks why on earth the other person is so meddlesome. Then, he warns him not to think he's superior just because he plays guitar. Staring firmly at him, Byung-gu says that Jung Gi-tae doesn't deserve to be there. He explains that it is a place where dreams flourish and that Gi-tae is someone who destroys them. He also states that someone who treads on others for selfish desires, like him, doesn't deserve to have a dream. Confused and irritated, Gi-tae asks what kind of nonsense he is spouting. Raising the knife, he vehemently dismisses the idea of a dream. Turning to the students gathered at the door, he shouts, questioning what they are looking at. Persisting in his shouts, Gi-tae orders them to leave. Threatening everyone, he declares that he will cut them into pieces. Raging for them to get out of his way, he pushes through the group and walks away down the hallway. Running towards Byung-gu, the students help him, while one of them calls out to get a teacher. Back in the present, Jibon explains that after that day, he never returned to school and thought that would be the end. However, he reveals that something even more terrible occurred 2 weeks later, when a piercing scream echoed from the band room. In the past, Byung-gu freezes in the hallway upon hearing the sound. Opening the door, Jibon calls out Byung-gu Hyung's name. With pliers in hand, Gi-tae tells him to maintain his air of superiority. Entering the room, Byung-gu hears Gi-tae order him to move forward and to glimpse the reality of a dream. Then, Gi-tae rants about a life devoid of dreams. In a retrospective narration, Jibon reveals he had frozen upon witnessing that moment once again. Sitting on the other boy, Gi-tae turns and asks Doyle when he had arrived. Standing up, he comments that he now feels refreshed. Warning Jibon, he declares that if the young man told anyone about what he had seen, he would meet the same fate. Sliding his hand over the boy's face, Gi-tae caresses him. He says goodbye and leaves, leaving Jibon behind. Motionless, the young man remains static on the spot. Returning to the present, Jibon explains that Jung Gi-tae abandoned school after that incident. He continues, narrating that the other boy was sent to a reformatory and there became a gangster. With a bitter voice, Jibon confirms that he now engages in loan sharking for a criminal organization. He then states that the reason he became who he is due to Jung Gi-tae. Declaring vehemently, Jibon reveals that he swore to himself that a person who destroys another's dream cannot be left free. Kneeling, he cries out that he wished to become stronger, to make the other experience the same suffering Byung-gu endured, but he froze again. Lamenting in a low voice, he confesses to having believed he had become stronger, but that in the end, nothing had changed. The girl asks if that was why he wanted Jibon. In confirmation, Jibon explains that the opponent is a gangster, and for that reason he considered gathering forces. He states that his goal is to subdue him by force and make that bastard pay for his actions. Firmly, Jibon then declares, "That's why I needed Jibon." In silence, Jibon remains motionless for a moment. Later, he walks down the street beside the girl. She comments that she understands the circumstances, but warns him that they are dealing with a gangster. She then asks if revenge against him wouldn't be too dangerous. A specific part of Doyle's story had deeply touched him. The idea that a person who destroys another's dream should not be left free. Walking without diverting his gaze, Gibbon concludes that this is not personal revenge, but rather justice. At another moment, a girl reminds Yena that her birthday is approaching, and a classmate asks if she had remembered the date. Yena's classmate then asks if she plans to throw a party and where it will be. She then wants to know if Yena will invite Gibbon too. Wondering to herself, Yena ponders if he would feel awkward, but her friend reassures her, saying that he wouldn't ignore her on her birthday. The friend then points to the window, revealing that Gibbon is there. Outside, Gibbon walks through the courtyard with Areum. One of the girls asks if that isn't Han Areum from the next room, the one who doesn't speak. Two other boys approach and greet them with a good morning. Feeling bothered, Yena questions why Areum is the center of attention. Turning away, she asks why she should care about it. Later, a group of boys asks Gibbon to get them school lunch, as the bread doesn't satisfy them. Areum appears at the door, and one of them asks why she is there. Holding a bag, she declares that she wants to have lunch with them. Gibbon gives her a look. One of the boys replies, "Of course she can." Then he stares at her and asks if she just spoke, and surprised, questions what happened. Soon the boys admire the packed lunch, asking if she prepared it herself. Areum offers them some of the food, which they readily accept. From a distance, Yena observes the three of them. Elsewhere, Gitai is on the phone with a woman, confirming a deadline and instructing her to transfer the money. After she mentions that her husband is returning, he hangs up, ending the call. Approaching a door, he continues on his way. Gitai finds a business card stuck to the door and picks it up. Entering the place, he announces his return to his boss, while three young men observe him. The young men comment on his strength and the fact that he picked up the card. One of them asks if it's a good idea to recruit a gangster. Another retorts, saying, "There's no need to fear. They are the cancer of society. Trash." Turning slowly, a man asks, "What did you just say?" He repeats the words, "Cancer of society. Trash?" Kim Jinwoo turns around upon hearing the comment. The room's boss, with visible bewilderment, inquired about the identity of those boys. One of his men clarified that they were discussing gangsters. Surprised, the man questioned the use of the word, asking if the boys were referring to them. In a defensive tone, one of the young men stated, "We are just small business owners who pay taxes." The boss then asked what about them made them look like gangsters. Hesitantly, the young man froze, unable to answer. In his thoughts, however, he believed it was obvious they did. Approaching, the man asked, "Why are you silent, and did you come here to get a loan?" The young man recoiled, hastily denying it. Gitai, showing a business card, asked, "Does this item belong to you?" The young man confirmed, saying that they were there precisely to give him the card. Looking at the card, Gitai inquired what hound dog was after all. The boss interrupted him, stating he had already heard of that name. Another man in the room suggested it was Duck's business. The boss then confirmed that Duck's business was gambling. He continued by saying it was a place where people bet on fights, and the young man confirmed. He then understood that they recruited skilled people who could make them money. Kim wondered if those responsible for Hound Dog were, in fact, gangsters. He then realized he had been involved in a business run by gangsters. Elsewhere, Doyle met Gibbon and asked if he knew how to ride a motorcycle. Why? Gibbon wanted to know. Doyle replied that he owned one and needed him to drive it for him. Areum asked why Gibbon would need to drive. Explaining calmly, Doyle said he had twisted his ankle in gym class earlier. Throwing a helmet to Gibbon, he asked for a ride. "Where are we going?" the girl asked. Doyle replied that it wasn't far and that he would give the instructions. Turning to her, he said not to worry, as he would bring her boyfriend back soon. "No," Areum quickly denied, insisting they were just friends. Silent, Gibbon held the helmet. Telling Byung-gu, Doyle said he was going out for some fresh air. Then, the two left the place together. Pointing at the motorcycle, Doyle asked if he could ride one of those. Gibbon popped a wheelie, and Doyle asked if he could do that too. As they crossed the city, Doyle commented that the young man had already caused a lot of trouble. Urgently warning Gibbon, Doyle told him to be careful with the sharp turn ahead and slow down. With absolute precision, Gibbon took the turn, and Doyle asked if he had used counter-steering. Perplexed, he questioned who on earth Gibbon was. Upon reaching their destination, Doyle asked Gibbon to drop him off there. Gibbon stared at the establishment's sign. Crouching down, Doyle picked up a piece of brick from the ground. Holding it as if it were a phone, he brought the brick to his ear. Explaining sincerely, Doyle said, "If it weren't for Gibbon driving, I would have hesitated and turned back like last time." He further stated, "This is a way to no longer hold back." Understanding the intention, Gibbon recognized that it was like a declaration of war. Doyle then said, "That bastard made Byung-gu urinate on himself, and a man who was once a band leader urinated in the middle of the street." He asked Gibbon, "Is that something I should just let go?" And he stated, "I need to do at least this." Staring at him with a tense expression, he awaited a response. Back at the office, the boss said, "This place isn't for kids like you." Kim explained that he came after hearing rumors and recognized him as his senior, Jung Gitai. He added that Gitai was the one who had dropped out of school and become a gangster. The young man then explained that they were preparing for the main fight and came looking for him because they believed he was the right person. Gitai asked, "Are you here to recruit me for a kids fight?" Insisting, the young man said, "The opponent is very skilled and shouldn't be underestimated." underestimated. Intrigued, Gitai seemed interested in the idea of there being someone worthy of being his opponent. The young man offered his phone, explaining that it was a transfer student who was very difficult to deal with. At the mention of the transfer student, Gitai had his attention completely captured. He then revealed that the young man's name was Jibon, while the video showed him landing a hit on an opponent. The recording continued, displaying him in action during a previous fight. The footage ended with a close-up of Jibon's face. Gitai watched the video and recognized the young man. He remembered the boy who was with Doyle, the one with the beautiful fingers. Back in the present, Gitai's boss warned him, "Don't interfere as it's just a fight between students." Agreeing with his senior, Gitai accepted. Suddenly, a brick flew through the window, whizzing past his face. A shard of glass hit him, leaving a cut on his cheek. Turning furiously, he yelled, "Who the hell did that?" Rushing to the window, their boss questioned if they wanted to die. The two looked out at the street and saw a motorcycle speeding away. Watching through the broken window, Gitai followed its movement. The motorcycle continued accelerating down the road. The boss asked if Gitai was all right, but he didn't answer. Riding the motorcycle, Jiban reflected that it might have been an unnecessary provocation, but he felt how much courage that act had required. Doyle's trembling hand gripped his shoulder tightly. Recognizing the fear, he perceived the presence of a great, insurmountable mountain pressing down on them, and he knew that feeling very well as they sped down the road. After Gitai confirmed his participation in Hound Dog, the students thanked him and promised their full commitment to the preparation. However, Gitai imposed his conditions. He would decide the place and time, and they should bring only their best fighter. One of the young men suggested that the school gym would be the original location for the fight, but Gitai reprimanded him, questioning, "What do you imagine me to be to propose a confrontation in a school environment?" The young man quickly agreed to the demands, realizing that the time and place would be changed, and recognizing how strict Gitai was. Next, Gitai asked, "Do you know a certain Kang Doyle?" The student, recognizing the name, explained, "He's one of the bullies from Daisen Industrial High and a freshman." Thoughtfully, Gitai wondered if that punk had grown so much. The young man, in response, added that he had heard Kang Doyle was expanding his influence and questioned, "What's the reason for your sudden interest, Gitai?" With a determined look, Gitai ordered them, "Find the punk's whereabouts," declaring that the boy had a debt to pay. In another setting, Jiban swept the temple courtyard. Interrupting his sweeping for a moment, he greeted his master. The master, receiving the greeting, welcomed the visitors. "Have you come for prayers?" To which Sangmin confirmed, "Yes." Sangmin explained, "My mother mentioned it was the first day of the month, and that it had been a while since our last visit, and she instructed me to pray at the temple." "I agree. That's an excellent initiative," the master said. Surprised, Sangmin questioned Jiban's presence there and asked, "Are you living here?" Sitting down, Sangmin commented, "I thought Jiban lived in the dormitory, and I myself used to visit the temple in my childhood." On the phone, Sangmin informed a friend, "Jiban resides at Saboam Temple." He invited the person, "Come over here," who confirmed, "I'm on my way." And then he asked, "Please buy some tasty food." Running up the temple stairs, a man appeared, calling, "Jiban." Sangmin greeted him, while Jiban turned his face to see who had arrived. Behind the man, Aryam stood. The young man explained to Jiban, "I sent a message to Aryam inviting her as well." Aryam nodded slightly upon hearing Sangmin ask, "Are you all right?" In another part of the city, a group of young men inspected a scooter. One of them suggested, "There's a spark plug problem," while another young man, sitting in an armchair, wondered, "Couldn't the issue be with the coil?" One of the men soon proposed, "Let's take the scooter to a mechanic," but another complained, "Think of the cost involved." The young man turned his face, looking to the side. Gitai, adjusting a pair of brass knuckles, commented, "Given the number of men in this group, you'll understand why I'm using this to avoid wasting time." Faced with the provocation, one of the men questioned, "What are you talking about? And who are you?" "I've come to collect a debt," Gitai stated without beating around the bush, but the other demanded, "Identify yourself before any fight." Without warning, Gitai delivered a punch to the man's face. Fallen, the man groaned. "Scared," another group member asked who he was. Instead of answering, Gitai landed another punch on the young man's face. The man collapsed soon after, leaving only the last one standing. The latter, noticing the brass knuckles, commented, "The effect is devastating." Gitai, turning his gaze to the only one left, stated, "The guy would be perfect as a punching bag for practice." The young man, called a piece of shit by Gitai, threatened him, promising to finish him off. Smiling, Gitai said, "Those bastards still haven't understood." Shouting for Gitai to shut up, the man charged forward to attack, yelling, "A guy like him only needs one hit." The man threw a punch but missed when Gitai dodged. Taking advantage of the opening, Gitai struck the opponent's face and immediately followed with another punch. The man stumbled, retreating with a bloodied face. With a smile, Gitai invited him, "Try to hit me." Realizing the difficulty, the man accepted the challenge. With a firm stance, Gitai told him, "Come at me." Declaring that he would show how far a guy who boasted about his own size could go, the man prepared himself. Finally, Doyle reacted, taking the initiative and grabbing a metal pipe. Back at that scene, the man in the green tracksuit was already on the ground. Observing his state, Gitai commented, "There isn't much to do if you're slow and only focus on defense." Doyle raised the pipe over his head and brought it down forcefully, yelling in a fury, "Die!" Gitai, however, blocked the blow with his arms crossed. Facing the young man, Gitai asked Kang Doyle, "Are you ready?" Doyle, silent, returned his gaze. Holding the pipe, Jong Gitai asked Kang Doyle, "Are you ready?" Then he shouted Doyle's name, challenging his audacity. With visible effort, Kang Doyle faced the aggressor. Gitai declared, "You're still the same trembling coward as always." However, Doyle raised the pipe and told Gitai, "Shut up." Jong Gitai vowed that Doyle would never defeat him, not even in death, and accused him. "You merely watched while Byung-goo's finger was amputated." Doyle then cursed the whole situation. Unfazed by the insult, Gitai ordered him, "Kneel." Kang Doyle obeyed, as Gitai stated, "That is your rightful place." Soon after, Gitai told Doyle to lift his head, inquiring, "How dare you raise a pipe?" At the same instant, he struck Doyle's head, punishing him for standing up against the veteran. He ordered the young man to raise his head again and hit him in the face, calling him worm. Kang Doyle collapsed to the ground. Jung Gitai then demanded, "Beg for mercy!" Bowed, Kang Doyle surrendered before Jung Gitai. In a serene temple, worshippers prayed before a statue. Han Arum, carefully, served a meal to the group. One of the men present commented, "I've never seen you here before," to which she replied, "This is our first time." The man then invited them. "Please return more often." While washing dishes, Sungmin commented to Jibon, "Aryum seems to enjoy the atmosphere." One of the other boys, carrying a heavy vase, grumbled about being the only one doing manual labor. A monk praised everyone's effort, but Sungmin argued, "I need to at least earn the meal." The monk then said he intended to invite them more often and asked them, "Please rest before you leave." As night fell, one of them observed, "The day passed quickly, and the rest did us good." Two of the boys asked Jibon, "Can we visit the temple occasionally to help?" One of them confessed, "This place brings me peace." And Sungmin joked, "You look like a monk in training." Soon after, Sungmin himself wondered, "Should I pursue this vocation?" Suddenly a shout of "Fire!" echoed, causing confusion among everyone. Jibon and his friend ran outside, trying to discern the source of the sudden noise. Outside, a monk was already putting out the flames, while someone speculated that the fire had started because of a cigarette butt. A man lamented people's carelessness, and the monk comforted them, saying, "At least the fire was discovered in time." Next, he tried to calm them, but Sungmin admitted, "I was truly scared." One of the youths commented, "I almost lost 10 years of my life." And Sungmin reiterated, "This could have been a disaster." At that instant, Jibon noticed something strange. A hound dog business card was stuck to the door. One of the guys pointed at the card, stating it hadn't been there before. At that moment, Kang Doyle appeared injured in a vision, begging Jibon not to come to him. Kang Doyle pleaded incessantly, insisting Jibon not approach him. From inside a car, a man in glasses asked his subordinate if he had already finished organizing the match. From the street, the young man confirmed he had prepared both sides, mentioning the premise of a gangster versus a transfer student. From the back seat, the man in the car checked if the gangster's name was Jong Gitai. Asking for a lighter, the woman next to him commented that the gangster came from Decent Industrial Technical School. As the vehicle drove away, the man wanted to know which gang he belonged to, receiving the reply that he was affiliated with the Jeokdo Association. Murmuring to himself, the man repeated the association's name. But the young man on the street interrupted him, stating he knew the man was also under their management. Continuing, the young man stated that Gitai wanted to enter the match full of enthusiasm. Questioning the situation, the man wondered if the Jeokdo Association was sending players to boost the game. Soon after, he admitted there was no way to refuse, as the opportunity was incredible. The young man was ordered to announce the match to everyone and promote it as much as possible, but he ended up asking whose side the boss was on. Calling him an idiot, the man stated that he obviously supported the Jeokdo Association. The scene then shifted to the canopy of some trees. Along a path, Jibin ran through the forest. Moving through the vegetation, he kept a steady pace. Upon reaching a viewpoint, the boy stretched with a high kick. Preparing himself, he said he would fight as hard as he could, no matter what. Ensuring his determination, he stated that he would become strong enough so that no one else could threaten him. However, his friends appeared shortly after, saying the monk had informed them he would be there. One of them commented that the climb was worth the effort, while the other begged for chocolate. Panting from the climb, Han Aryum tried to catch her breath. Sungmin told Jibon that the day was important, and the other boy said he had come there because he was worried. One of the friends promised they would cheer with all their might, regardless of the opponent. Aryum confirmed she would cheer for him too. United, his friends strengthened him, and Jibon responded firmly. Upon arriving at the fight location, one of them pointed ahead and commented on the intense atmosphere. Astonished by the setting, Sungmin realized the fight would take place in a place like that. Trembling without understanding why, another boy questioned if Jibon was okay. Commenting that his friend showed no hesitation, one of the guys made Sungmin wonder if their cheering had reached him. Standing in front of the warehouse, several men waited in silence. Receiving the group, the fight organizer approached Jibon. Stating it was an honor to see him arrive on time, he maintained a cordial tone. Pointing a finger, one of the friends accused the man of threatening Jibon by causing the fire. Not knowing what the boy was talking about, the man asked, and his companion assured him he had no idea. Advising Jibon to ignore the details and focus on the fight, he left his friend indignant. Relating the atmosphere of the dispute, the organizer explained that expectations were high and reinforced that the opponent should not be underestimated, demanding Jibon fight with everything he had. Then, someone shouted for the gate to be opened. As soon as the gate opened, Jibon and his friends looked inside. Inside the warehouse, a crowd cheered incessantly. Observing the agitated audience, they felt the weight of the atmosphere. From the other side, someone called Jibon's name. With his back turned, Jung Gitai himself announced that he was waiting for him. Turning slowly, the gangster said Jibon should know who he was because of Doyle. Facing his opponent, the boy steadied his stance. Surprised to see him there, Aryum reacted, and Sungmin asked if she knew that person. Revealing the truth, one of the boys said that Jung Gitai was a gangster, shocking the group. Declaring it was time to finish what they had started that day, Gitai showed confidence. But first, he announced a special guest who would make Jibon happy to see. When something was revealed, both Jibon and Aryum stared at the scene, holding their breath. Chained in the center, Kang Doyle stated that Jibon shouldn't have come, as he didn't want to be seen that way. Repeating the request, he insisted Jibon leave. Covering her mouth, Aryum called out for Doyle in despair. Confused, his friends asked what was happening and why he was like that. Questioning coldly, Jung Gitai asked Jibon if he knew the reason Doyle was in that situation. Silent before the scene, Jibon couldn't answer. Promising revenge for all he had suffered, Jung Gitai inquired if Jibon truly wished to protect that man. He revealed that the key to the chains was in his pocket, and promised to hand it over if he was defeated, but he imposed a condition for himself if he won. Jibon's friends, scared by the proposition, reacted immediately. Calmly, Gitai declared that none of them were interested in money. Next, he announced that if he won, he would take 2 of Jibon's fingers and challenged him to accept it. Horrified, his friends deemed the condition absurd. Trying to prevent the confrontation, they stated that it was unacceptable and that the opponent was clearly a psychopath. Han Aryum, warning firmly, advised that the man was indeed cruel. A brief flashback recalled the day Doyle's hands trembled as he held onto a motorcycle. The memory continued, revealing that Byung-gu had been so terrified of Gitai that he had peed his pants. Returning to the present, the gangster inquired if Jibon was afraid. Realizing the opponent's influence, Jibon noticed he instigated tremors in others. However, as he took off his jacket, he declared that he could no longer hold back, while his friends inquired if he would actually fight. Smiling with excitement, Jung Gitai appreciated the young man's stance. Positioning himself in the center of the arena, Jibon prepared for combat. Around him, the crowd went wild, while his friends watched with visible concern. Facing each other in the center, the 2 contenders were surrounded by spectators. With a megaphone, the announcer declared that the fight would begin shortly and urged everyone to place their bets. Presenting the first competitor, he called Jung Gitai the powerhouse of the underworld. Next, he announced Jibon as the transfer student who had defeated the champion. Questioning the audience about the winner, the announcer ignited the atmosphere in the venue. A countdown began, and in the control room, a man with glasses monitored every detail. Observing the over 2,000 live spectators, he commented on the grandeur of the event. Stating that the stage was set, he urged both to fight until blood was spilled. The match then began, and Jung Gitai advanced without hesitation. Delivering a knee strike to Jibon's head, he initiated the offense. However, the boy blocked the subsequent attack and counterattacked with a kick. He then retreated, seeking space. The crowd continued to cheer fervently. Preparing a new advance, Jung Gitai adjusted his stance. Defending himself from a flurry of punches, Jibon followed each blow attentively. Although his speed and strength were above average, he had never learned boxing or martial arts. As a typical street fighter, Jibon was no easy opponent thanks to his impressive physique. "Are you scared?" Jung Gitai shouted in fury. Advancing without hesitation, Jibon delivered a direct punch to his opponent's ribs. Feeling the impact, he realized the blow was clean and effective. Reacting immediately, Gitai struck Jibon's face with a punch. "That only tickled," he commented, challenging him to continue. Considering the enemy's reaction speed, Jibon instinctively looked for openings. Even without technical skills, the opponent overcame difficulties with natural physical abilities, and Jibon was repeatedly hit. Responding firmly, the boy delivered another kick to Gitai's face. "Was that a massage?" Jung Gitai inquired mockingly. "Do you really think you can defeat me like that?" he then questioned. "I'll show you reality," Gitai shouted, launching an attack. Upon being hit again, Jibon felt his rage intensify instead of receding. The crowd ceaselessly roared Jong Gitai's name. "Who has the upper hand?" one of Jibon's friends asked. "His guard is starting to fail," the other commented. Continuing his analysis, he stated that the opponent's physique was overwhelmingly superior and that it would be catastrophic if Jibon were severely hit. One of them explained that Jibon's strategy was to knock out the opponent by accumulating damage gradually. As for Gitai, his intention was to win with a single blow, relying on overwhelming force. Observing the contest, if Jibon gets hit, everything will be lost, Ahrium uttered. "However, Ahrium," Kang Doyle's voice echoed, coming from where he was chained, calling out to her. Running towards him, Ahrium moved away from the arena's focus. "You need to stop him," Doyle stated. "Why did you bring Jibon?" he asked. Jibon had no choice, she explained. "They threatened to burn down the temple where he lived." "Damn everything," he cursed. "Free me. I need the key," he reiterated. "The key is with Jong Gitai," she reminded him, trying to make him understand. "I'll find a way to get it," Doyle asserted. "That man is like a snake," he warned. "You never know what he'll do." Agreeing with him, Ariam struggled to maintain composure. The exchange of blows between the two fighters continued intensely. Turning her gaze back to the arena, Han Ariam followed every movement with renewed attention. "Jibon hit him so hard! Keep it up!" one of the friends shouted. Continuing the fight, Jibon kept striking Jong Gitai. "This is his chance! Attack!" shouts around announced, encouraging him. "Show your skills! Hit harder!" his friends ordered, pushing the boy forward as he advanced against Jong Gitai. "However, I was waiting for exactly this moment for you to get close," the fighter revealed. "Self-defense doesn't work on the streets," he then roared, immediately delivering a punch. Jibon realized he had fallen into the trap on purpose. "Nothing matters in the face of power!" The aggressor struck him in the face, and the impact threw Jibon's head back. "Jibon! Jibon!" his friends roared, unable to believe what they were seeing. "This is the wall of reality," Jong Gitai proclaimed. Continuing his attack, "I've truly fought on the asphalt," he stated. "Could a hothouse plant like you defeat me?" he questioned. He then ordered the boy, "Know your place. Goodbye," Gitai said, as Jibon's vision began to fail. At that instant, he remembered someone holding his face. "Cheer up!" The memory of a girl begging him, "Please, see it through. I love you," struck him forcefully, and his heart began to beat faster. Jibon got up, propelled by a new energy. "Regain consciousness!" Han Ariam shouted, but the boy only kept his focus on his opponent. Immediately, he blocked Jong Gitai's punch with both arms. "You resilient bastard!" the aggressor exclaimed, astonished that Jibon had resisted the blow. Even injured, Jibon faced his rival and then struck the opponent's face with a counterattack. Gitai was pushed back a few steps. "This has become a serious fight," the boy's friends commented. "Nobody here is kidding around." Jong Gitai, for his part, "It's been a long time since I felt something like this. My dopamine is surging," he stated. "You're better than I imagined," the fighter admitted, "but you're still just a school snack." He then advanced. Jibon then landed a kick on the opponent and faced him, while Jong Gitai explained, "Gangsters cannot afford to lose." He stated, "The moment we lose, we die." Gitai then roared, "I will never let you win," striking him in the face. "He's a zombie," one of Jibon's friends called out, saying that the fight was getting even more intense. The two continued exchanging blows. Jibon's friends noticed that he was no longer defending himself, but rather dodging the attacks. Jibon avoided another punch, and the aggressor cursed him, consumed by frustration, but one of the friends pointed at Jibon. Motionless, the young man kept his guard down, surprising everyone. Calling him a loser, Gitai advanced to attack, but Jibon landed a direct punch to the aggressor's chin. Kang Doyle wondered if Jibon had already deciphered his opponent's pattern and concluded that Gitai's movements were obvious, seeking only one-punch knockouts. Jibon had anticipated the attacks and now knew Gitai's weakness. After dodging, the young man delivered a full-force kick against the aggressor. Next, the scene showed the young man holding a piece of wood. Jong Gitai cursed and challenged him, pointing the piece of wood at Jibon. The young man, in turn, merely stared fixedly at his rival. Jong Gitai roared that the real fight was beginning at that instant. Declaring that the rules of the game no longer mattered, he altered the arena's atmosphere. Jibon's friends labeled him a coward, accusing him of cheating. Even the match announcer emphasized that using a weapon was a violation. However, Gitai ordered the losers to shut up and asked if that seemed like a mere game to them. Then, the challenger provoked anyone in the audience who dared to face him. Turning to Jibon, he incited him to finish finish the contest. This is not a game, but a confrontation between us two, Jibon agreed. This is a real fight, Gitai then bellowed. Advancing against the young man, he promised to crush him. The aggressor attacked with the torch, inciting Jibon to go at him. The friends observed the scene, commenting on the cheating. Don't get involved with gangsters, you brat, he yelled at Jibon. However, the young man blocked the attack with a kick and immediately hit his opponent's head with another. Jong Gitai fell to the ground, defeated by Jibon. Spectators murmured that he seemed finished and labeled him pathetic for being a gangster. At that moment, Kang Doyle's chain key slipped and fell to the ground. Han Aram noticed the object. It's not over yet, Gitai stated, getting up. I won't stop until one of us is annihilated, he roared. Jibon ran towards his rival and delivered a direct blow. The young man hit him again, sending him to the ground. I can't lose to a failure like you, Gitai protested, kneeling. You have no reason to feel wronged, Jibon replied. You're nothing but an oppressor of the weak. You must have felt superior destroying others' dreams, but that doesn't make you strong. Live in mediocrity for the rest of your life. He then condemned his rival. Jong Gitai suddenly pulled out a knife. The aggressor advanced and tried to stab Jibon in the back. The crowd reacted with disbelief at the scene. Look behind you! One of Jibon's friends roared, alerting him. You shouldn't have turned your back on a gangster, Gitai taunted, advancing with the knife. He knocked Jibon to the ground and positioned himself for the attack. I'll annihilate you, Jong Gitai promised. You'll forever regret having crossed me when you see your face in the mirror, the aggressor threatened, raising the knife. I'm the ultimate winner, he then declared, enjoying the situation. However, a blaze hit Gitai's face. Kang Doyle intervened, striking him with a flaming piece of wood. Immobilizing him, Doyle kept Gitai on the ground. Then, he turned to Jibon and asked if he was okay. Jibon merely nodded. Aram wondered when Doyle had gotten free, and her friend discerned that it was she who had freed him. Kang Doyle then stared at Jibon and asked if he could finish it. He sat on Gitai and began breaking his fingers. Wait, Jibon intervened. Don't continue, Jong Gitai pleaded from the ground. Why? Doyle simply questioned him. Stop it, you brat, Gitai begged him. You did the same thing, the young man reminded him. But I'm different, Gitai claimed. Why? Doyle asked him. I belong to a different class, he articulated, turning his face. Just one more left, Kang Doyle calmly warned, breaking another of his fingers. Kang Doyle prepares to break the last finger, but Jong Gitai begs him to wait. Shouting, Gitai insults him, calling him a bastard and asserting his own gangster status. Then he threatens him, warning that his superior would kill him if he found out. Kang Doyle, indifferent, questions why he would tell the superior, labeling the attitude as childish. However, the match organizer bursts in with his team and orders them to stop. He is held back by Jibon's arm. The scene reveals Jibon blocking the man while Doyle remains over Gitai. The organizer then questions Jibon, asking if he is aware of his actions and if he can bear the consequences. Kang Doyle looks over his shoulder. Jibon also turns his face to observe him, and Doyle just smiles. Please don't go on. I'm a veteran, Jong Gitai begs. Kang Doyle, with disdain, comments, now you look even more like a piece of trash, stating he feels ashamed for having been complacent. Then, he breaks Jong Gitai's last finger. A girl in the crowd covers her mouth, and the spectators react, shocked at the scene. The confrontation is invalid, the match organizer declares, claiming the situation had turned into chaos. However, the spectators argue, the gangster was the one who broke the rules first. A gambler who bet on the gangster admits Jibon's victory. Soon, the crowd begins to clamor for Jibon's victory. The organizer glares at Jibon, who remains impassive. Jibon's friends loudly state, everyone saw the opponent's defeat. The crowd persists in chanting Jibon's name as he stands next to Doyle. Jibon looks over his shoulder. In his office, the man with glasses reflects perplexed on the events, which had exceeded his expectations. He notes that Jibon defeated a gangster from the Jokdo Association at peak viewership. Such a feat would turn the Jokdo Association into a laughingstock, and he laments the imminent financial loss. Then, he attributes all blame to Jibon. Next, he ponders how he will deal with the situation, cursing the outcome. A black car approaches the fight location. Inside, the driver informs the superior of their arrival, but the superior orders them to wait. The driver spots Jong Gitai emerging from the warehouse and reports that Gitai has left the premises. His superior simply orders them to turn off the car. Jong Gitai approaches the vehicle, calling for his superior. Help me! Those bastards assaulted me! The assailants are still at the location, and you can catch them if you act immediately. He pleads for help. However, his superior simply punches him in the head. Then, he kicks him away. Jong Gitai collapses to the ground, crying out for his superior. Didn't I warn you to stay away from fights with students? The man questions him. Gitai tries to justify himself, gurgling incoherently. His superior then kicks him again, hitting him while he is on the ground. While Gitai utters apologies, Jibon and his group observe the scene from a distance. Gitai acts like a gangster, but in reality, he's just a nobody. Kang Doyle comments. Kang Doyle thanks Jibon and then extends his gratitude to the friends. Han Areum, however, intervenes, stating, "You all need priority medical treatment." She insists they go to the hospital, but Doyle retorts, "I just need a few days of rest." Then he walks away with Jibon, seeking his confirmation. In a flashback, Jibon wonders when he will be able to completely forget the person who had the power to stop or accelerate his heart. A group of students walks down the street. In a classroom, a teacher asks, "Don't doze off." Next, two girls confront Han Aryum, questioning her about giving Jibon a phone and calling her ridiculous. Yena then asks directly, "Do you intend to date him?" Aryum hesitates to answer, prompting Yena to remind her that she knows Aryum's feelings for Jibon. However, Aryum claims it is more than dating. The other girl asks, "What do you mean by that?" She explains that she feels a deep curiosity about Jibon and yearns to know everything about him. One of the girls accuses her of deception and of trying to seduce Jibon. Subsequently, she reminds Aryum of the relationship between Yena and Jibon. Han Aryum reiterates, "We are just talking." Yena slaps her across the face. She demands, "Stop playing games," and declares, "I will not give Jibon to you." The two girls then walk away, leaving her behind. Han Arum touches her face and in a low voice murmurs, "Deceptive," referring to Yena, wondering if she couldn't at least have shown a little regret.